The Select Board meeting of Monday, September 23rd. I'm joined by Anthea Brady, Bill McGonigal, Mike Betancourt, and Town Manager Beth Rudolph. We just had a fun spirit weekend, albeit a rainy Saturday, but the football team won, and great road race yesterday. I know, because I took an ill-advised trip to the grocery store, or tried to, and turned around on two side streets. So too bad that all the community organizations got a little bit soggy on the town common on Saturday, but it's a great time to get people downtown. We have a pretty full agenda this evening. We're going to start with acceptance of donations. When we get to public comment, I'm just going to say for the folks that are here, we have 7 public hearings, grants of location, traffic hearings, and licenses. When we get to public comment, which will be the third item tonight, if anyone is here for something that's not reflected on the agenda, we'll ask you to come up. Otherwise, there'll be an opportunity to comment on all of the various hearings. So, Patty, who has the motions this evening for donations?
Mr. Betancourt.
Oh.
Okay.
Okay.
Well,
Our vice chair is on vacation, so we're having
so I gave you motions.
motion reader of the day, Mike Betancourt.
But you have the agenda in front of you for that.
Okay, perfect.
So
And
if-
you don't need motions yet?
Well, if you could just do acceptance of donations, please, that would be great.
Yep. I move that we, with gratitude, accept the donation amount of $290 to the Council on Aging for appreciation of transportation services provided.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I move that we accept a donation with gratitude of $300 from Catherine Alexander towards the memorial for John Sullivan.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And aye. Okay, thank you. And now we'll hear from the town managers. Thanks,
Sure.
Beth.
Thank you. First up, I have a few staff appointments. So first, in accordance with Section 4-2B of the Town Charter, I've made the following regular full-time promotional appointment in the Department of Public Works of Stephen Denizio Wakefield to school custodian, and I requested the board vote to waive the customary 15-day appointment period.
Motion.
I move that we waive the customary waiting period for the appointment for Stephen Denizio to the DPW custodian.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Just a few more. In accordance with Section 4-2B of the Town Charter, I made the following regular full-time promotional appointment of Alex Sarkin of Marlborough to Water Sewer Special Equipment Operator in the Department of Public Works, and I requested the board vote to waive the customary 15-day appointment period.
I move that we approve Alex Guerin for the position of DPW Water Sewer Special Equipment Operator and waive the 15-day waiting period.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
And then finally, in accordance with Section 4-2B of the Town Charter and in accordance with the rules and regulations of the Department of Personal Administration, Civil Service, and as permitted by Chapter 708 of the Acts of 1941 as amended, I've made the following permanent full-time appointment in the Fire Department of John Paul Marino of Winchester to firefighter/paramedic, and I request that the board vote to waive the customary 15-day appointment period.
I move that we appoint John Paul Marino to the Fire Department position of firefighter paramedic and waive the customary 15-day waiting period.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Great,
Thank you.
And just a few updates on items that are not on the agenda this evening. First up, our health department has opened up slots for the first public flu clinics this fall. Clinics will be held on Wednesday, October 9th. This one is a high-dose flu clinic and an updated COVID-19 shot just for residents who are 65 years and older. Nobody younger than that is allowed at this clinic. Clinics for all age groups will be held on Wednesday, October 16th, Monday, October 21st, and Monday, November 4th. Those are just seasonal flu shots, flu mist, and high-dose flu shots as well. No COVID vaccines at those 3 times. You can register for all of those clinics on the town's website. Also a reminder, if you have school-age children, those clinic openings are also available right now. I think it closes on Wednesday. We are getting ready. Our town clerk's office is getting ready for the November election. It's to be held on Tuesday, November 5th in the Winchester High School. Voting starts at 7 a.m. and will close at 8 p.m. There's also early voting, which will be held here at Town Hall in the Winchester room that we can kind of see in the shadow right out the window there. That early voting starts on Saturday, October 19th, and will continue through Friday, November 1st. So obviously we all expect a large turnout for this election. I would encourage everybody to try to take advantage of that early voting. It's very convenient here at Town Hall. And then also you're able to do an absentee ballot or a mail-in ballot as well for that. Just a reminder to the public and the board that we have the RFP currently out for the lease of town-owned lands, parking lot behind 955 Main Street. Those RFPs are due a week from today on September 30th. Also, we are moving forward into the fall town meeting schedule. So town meeting starts on Thursday, November 7th, and expected to continue on the 14th, the 18th, and potentially on November 21st. We just scheduled the hearing date for the town manager's public hearing, which will be held on Wednesday, October 30th at 6 p.m. via Zoom. So we'll be getting that out to everybody and to town meeting members as well. Just a few construction updates. So I was actually hoping this might be the first time I didn't have an update on the Eversource project in the 3 years I've had this, been giving updates to the board, but alas, I think we're still a few weeks away from that. They've done most of the paving and pavement markings out on Cross Street. National Grid is out there right now completing some work on the regulator pit that the board discussed earlier this year. They will be paving curb to curb the area that they disturbed in the new pavement that Eversource just put down. The town is moving forward on our own with the installation of the speed humps at the crossing at Davidson Park and the soccer field, and then also two pedestrian kind of refuge islands at Holton Street and Forest Street that we've talked about. The curbing on those was just a bit delayed, so wasn't able to go in before the repaving happened, but hopefully all of that work will be completed this fall. Happy to say that we just advertised for the playground renovations at Leonard Field and McDonald Field, and the bid opening for those projects is scheduled for October 10th. High school drainage project, there is just a small amount of work left to do, which we are coordinating with the school department. And as you can see, anybody who parked in the back of Town Hall, we have some work, immediate repairs happening at the library roof. So there's a few parking spaces that are closed off right now. And then we also have a much larger ADA improvement project for the area behind Town Hall and the library parking area, which will be happening over the next few weeks. So there'll be some additional parking lot disruptions over the fall here at Town Hall. And I think that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions for Beth? Thanks, Beth. Okay. So is anybody here for public comment for a matter that's not on the agenda? If so, please raise your hand or just approach the table. If not, we'll just move into public hearings.
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Sure.
So it's not, I thought you had said about the warrant articles. This is about the ARPA funds. Would there be a separate opportunity for discussion on the ARPA funds?
No, if you would like to come up and give public comment on that, that would be, it's not going to be a public hearing, so come on up.
Thank you.
Sure. If you could state your name and address and 3 minutes or less. Go right ahead.
Wonderful. Good evening. I'm Shannon Stodd at 32 Pilgrim Drive, Winchester. I'm also a parent of 3 in the Winchester Public School System, board member of WinPAC, and a member of Winchester's Disability Access Commission. I'd like to start by sharing a past memory that served as my personal motivation for WinPAC's recent ARPA community grant application. Briefly, 5 years ago, I was touring Vincent Owens Preschool Playground, preparing for my medically complex child's start in our town's integrated preschool program. As we walked through the playground, I was told, "Oh, we will make sure she doesn't play on that. Oh, and that too. And that one, honestly, I'm worried about any of our children playing on that." I remember feeling sad, thinking how we were at day 1 of my daughter's journey in school and already learning about all the things that weren't designed for her. Yet I'm not alone. There are many in town who have used our elementary school playgrounds, wishing that there was a swing that their child could use or an area where kids of all abilities could play together. When the term accessible is used in playground design, it often translates to, does this meet ADA accessibility laws? While we want our playgrounds to be accessible, we also want them to be inclusive to students with and without disabilities. The resulting designs will incorporate universal design elements that allow all kids of all abilities to access all or most of the elements, while still including challenging elements for those who want it. We have found that our elementary school playgrounds often meet the minimum legal requirements for accessibility, but are not inclusive for all members of our community. Over the past year, WinPAC has worked with Winchester's Disability Access Commission to advocate for universal playground designs at the new Lynch School, the Lincoln School, as well as for the repair of the McDonald and Leonard playgrounds. Specifically, we work to promote choices that will bring joyful and engaging physical experiences for all of our children in our community. While it has been a very positive process for us, we also notice a continued theme of playground design being centered on whether or not we are meeting ADA accessibility versus will this be inclusive. The Winchester ARPA community grants, which will be discussed at your meeting tonight, are intended to respond to the negative impact of the pandemic, such as supporting health, wellness, stability, and community within Winchester. We at WinPAC couldn't imagine a more positive outcome than having the use of our elementary play spaces expanded to use and include more features that welcome all of those who use them, including their caregivers. Working with the DAC, we submitted a proposal that included increasing shade cover, benches, swings, and other features that are specific to each playground. While this will not solve all the concerns we have for our playgrounds, it would be a wonderful first step forward. We also believe that we are a group of community stakeholders that have expertise as well as lived experiences that would allow for wise use of the funds. In closing, as you make your final recommendations on the ARPA awards, we would like to advocate for WinPAC's application. The impact of these changes extends far beyond our students. They are year-round gathering spaces that foster community, health, and recreation. We believe that the community impact would be extensive and would last for many years to come. Thank you so much for the time tonight.
Thank you. Okay, is anybody else here for public comment? Okay, so then we're going to move into our hearings. The first hearing we're going to have is used car dealer license Class 2 for Boston Prime Cars, LLC, doing business at 802 Main Street. If someone's here and representing that business, come on up. We have your application. If you can maybe talk about the business, sort of your experience operating business, history in the town or other locations.
Sure.
So
we currently have a location in Chelsea for 10 years now. We've been in the business. Currently live in the North Shore in Peabody, so we want to expand. We opened one in on Route 1 called All Motors. That's a DBA under the same corporation, and then we're just trying to stay closer to home. We live in Peabody now, so we found this location. We thought it would be a great location for our new place.
And you're taking it over from an existing business?
It used to be a dealership. We have nothing to do with them. We just want to use the location and keep it a car dealership.
Okay. Hours of operation are consistent, I assume, in the application.
Yeah.
We don't have a lot of car dealers in town. We do have a couple. So have you, do you have any concerns on parking, access, like how many vehicles do you expect to have on the lot or ability to walk around?
No, from what we saw when they were there, the way the lot was set up and filled in was about what we were looking for.
Kind of consistent sort of square
Consistent
foot
with what
area to
was
what
already
you-
there, yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm going to have some more questions, so I'm going to let it turn over to my other colleagues if they have some. I may come back, but any other questions?
I don't have any.
Okay.
This is on Main Street, kind of across from the Dunkin' Donuts and the
Yeah, on
carpet shop on
corner.
the other
Yeah,
corner?
with the carpet shop, yeah.
Okay.
On Clark and Main, right? Okay.
It's all good with.
I assume the license is in order? Thank you. Okay. I don't have any questions. Does anybody from the public would like to give comment on this public hearing or this business? You're invited to come up. Okay. Then I will, Bob?
Just one question.
You may, come on up.
Are you planning on a new water service or a sewer service, anything like that?
No.
Because we plan on paving that this fall, so I just wanted to double check. All right.
Get it, okay. Actually, that's a good point. Do you plan on doing any sort of renovation to the structure that's currently there or
Just
anything
painting, which was already done.
else? Okay. So just taking over what's there and making use of something that's currently
Yeah.
unused?
I feel like we should add that question, Bob, to all now business licenses.
It just happened that we're going to be paving it soon, so I just want to make sure.
Good point. Infrastructure changes. Okay. So no other public questions, no other public comment. I think we can then close the hearing, and if we want to, if anyone on the board wants to make a motion for this license, we can.
I move that we approve a used car dealer's license Class 2 to Boston Prime Cars, LLC, 802 Main Street.
Second.
Any additional discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, and I vote yes. Good luck with the
Is it
business.
LLC or Inc.?
Inc.
Inc.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Inc.
Can we amend that to Inc.?
Yes. Thank you.
Very much.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Okay, and is Jackie here from Eversource? There you, oh, you're in the back this time. I know, you had a few people in front of you, so you have a busy night of multiple road openings. We do have the packet with all of the maps and locations. So I think we'll take these one at a time in case there's any neighbors and abutters here this evening. So we'll start with Johnson Road at the conduit to provide service to 105 Johnson Road within the public right-of-way. And if you could just introduce yourself for the record, Jackie, even though we
Jackie
see...
Duffy, Eversource Energy. I would like to install 17 feet of conduit in Johnson Road to provide electric service to 105 Johnson Road, the Winchester Swim and Tennis Club.
Okay. Any questions? Anybody here like to comment on this particular grant of location? I'm just going to open up the official public hearing for all of Eversource's grants of location. So if anybody's here, please raise your hand or come on up. Nobody's here from the Swim and Tennis Club? Okay. So I have a general question because one of these is actually on my street. Is there notification to abutters like within 24 hours, Jackie, when that any road opening, or it's just details? I feel like I've seen this around town, but I'm curious when they start operating. Do people just arrive one morning? Because Johnson Road's a pretty busy street, so will there?
That is right.
So they are required to get a street opening permit. I'm
Right,
not
from-
sure if there's an abutter notification required.
Nope.
Certainly
Okay.
something like Johnson Road, although it is on the side of the road, they, when reviewing the street opening permit, we could put, work restrictions on it if necessary.
I'm not sure we need to. I'm just curious if something as busy as that, if we could potentially take, and maybe this is a question for DPW, but, we have the flashing sign we often put at Skilling's and Stop and Shop. Polls open, transfer station, maybe something near VO or a few days ahead, just notifying, road work, when we have a date certain, road work happening on this date, because it's just past that intersection at Ridge Street. A lot of traffic will be heading in either direction. So if there's a way to notify people that there will be a detail or road
We can
opening.
work with
Yeah, I can work
Eversource
with
on
Matt
that.
on that.
Yeah, within a day or two, a bit of a heads up. It's not so much the neighbors, I think it's like that's just a lot of traffic, and if we're going to be pushing some traffic flow into, we're just sort of shortening up that lane, I think it'll be good.
In the road, or is it just from the pole?
It's off the road. I mean, they may have equipment that needs to
Might be in the
set up.
road.
They're not digging in the road
Yep.
because it's
Right.
on the pole is on the
But
same
there might be some
side.
staging. Okay,
Yeah, it's on the same side.
okay. So I think,
I'll talk to Matt about it.
yeah, I think that of all the roads that you have, I think that one is maybe the one where even just the distraction or disruption would be good to notify people. Okay. Any other questions for Jackie on this one? Matt, any other additional comments?
Other comments?
Okay. So if we have a motion,
Yep. I move that we grant Eversource location at Johnson Road to install 17 feet of conduit to provide service at 105 Johnson Road within the public right-of-way.
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Great, and now we'll move on to North Gateway. 17 feet seems to be the magic number on those ones.
Jackie Duffy, Eversource, would like to install 17 feet of conduit in North Gateway. It's to provide electric service to 1 North Gateway.
Matt, any questions on this one?
We had no questions or comments.
So this is my neighbor. There's a trench running right alongside the driveway, so it's ready, I think, for that to be laid. So I don't need to be notified. I'm not directly in a butter, and I don't need a big old flashing sign on my street. I'm good.
You sure?
I'm sure, quite.
Okay.
I think it would be more of a distraction than it needs to be. Any questions for Jackie or Matt? Okay, so if we want to make a motion, let's do.
I move that we approve a grant of location at North Gateway to install 17 feet of conduit to provide service at 1 North Gateway within the public right-of-way.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. sorry, I realized, did any neighbor want to talk about that one? Okay, no. Let me just ask it this way. Is anybody here that would like to weigh in on any of the Eversource grants of location, Rocky Ledge or Vincent Circle? Okay. Then we'll keep going then with Rocky Ledge. Thanks, Jackie.
NSTAR Electric would like to install 206 feet of conduit on Wagon Wheel Road and Rocky Ledge Terrace. It's to provide electric service to a dune development at the end of Rocky Ledge Terrace.
Okay. So Matt, this one is, it's going down Wagon Wheel and then curving over to Rocky Ledge, right?
Yeah, the pole they're coming off of is kind of at the corner, but it's a little bit more on Wagon Wheel.
Okay.
And then it's serving actually the subdivision that's under construction at the end of Rocky Ledge.
So once this is done, this is sort of service to multiple, I assume,
Yeah, I believe
locations in
there
Horace?
are-
We don't expect to have to open up the street.
So there are 3 lots on the subdivision that's under construction. They would have services within the subdivision. There aren't any
Yep.
other services. There should be no need to open up the street again
Okay.
for electric.
Okay. And no one's here from Wagon Wheel Road, so doesn't look like it. Okay. Any additional questions for Matt or Jackie? All right, we'll take a motion.
I move that we approve grant of location to Eversource at Rocky Ledge Terrace, to install 206 feet of conduit and on Wagon Wheel Road and Rocky Ledge Terrace to provide service to the new development at the end of Rocky Ledge Terrace within the public right-of-way.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And the last, Vincent Circle.
Jackie Duffy, Eversource would like to install 8 feet of conduit in Vincent Circle to provide electric service to private property at 6 Vincent Circle.
Okay. So is 6 Vincent an existing house, or is it something
It's new.
new?
Well, it's
the
like it being
rehab.
rebuilt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. And that is just coming from, just right into the edge of that property line, it looks like.
Right.
Not 200 feet worth of,
No.
okay. Any public comment, any questions from the board on Vincent Circle? Okay, take a motion.
I move that we approve a grant of location to Eversource for Vincent Circle to install 8.5 feet of conduit on Vincent Circle to provide service at 6 Vincent Circle within the public right-of-way.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you,
Thank
Jackie,
you.
and good luck.
Have a nice night.
Thank you.
Jackie.
So we'll close the Eversource hearing, and now we will open up the traffic hearing for downtown handicap parking spaces with a proposal to install 2 handicap parking spaces. So we have handouts at the table. We have the presentation in our packet. And yes, if folks want to join you, Matt, please come up. We can get some more chairs.
Lisa McIntosh. Nice to meet you.
So, just so you know, you're the only one that can speak, even though everyone's supporting, because you haven't called your meeting to order.
Oh, I didn't know there was such a thing.
Yeah, there is. You know, I didn't realize everyone was coming.
Oh, well,
It was just great.
the gang's all here.
Yes.
Okay?
Okay, so this results from basically numerous requests that have come in over the last year or so through the town manager's office or through some of the various staff departments regarding the location of handicap spaces in town. And particularly of note was the space that was by Waterfield and Church that was lost when the bump outs were installed. On the second slide, I just gave an overview of where the existing spaces are in red, and then we kind of just looked in the downtown area in general where we thought there might be some gaps in spaces, and we came up with 2 locations, which are shown in green on the slide. Just I guess I'm on slide 3 now, just showing the original location of the space by Waterfield and Church that was lost. Above and beyond kind of identifying where the gaps were, we really did rely a lot on the DAC to provide some input on where they thought the most appropriate location within that vicinity was. The first location would be to make up for the lost space, and it was identified to be on Church Street on the other side of Waterfield Road, and it was the first space as you come in after the bump out. I didn't, in the interest of time, I didn't want to go through every single iteration we looked at, but
Thank you for that.
I think the DAC recommended this location because it was easy for them to pull in and pull out. It's still pretty close to the crosswalks, and it's pretty close to where the old space was. And then in terms of the location by Brugger's Bagels, again, we thought that there was a kind of a gap there. We, as staff, identified this location as well because Brugger's has a parking lot with handicap accessible spaces in it, so we felt, someone's not just going to park there to go to Brugger's. Hopefully they would use that, their parking lot, so that this space would be available to the other businesses that might not have designated handicap parking. And this location, again, was selected by DAC for kind of maneuverability into and out of the space, and also being close to the crosswalk. That's it in a nutshell.
Okay.
Thank you, Matt. Lisa Matrandola, DAC Chair. Glad to be here this evening. As somebody who has lived my whole life here in Winchester and has had my first car here when I was 18 years old. One of the things I hoped for was to get handicap parking. And I do remember at that time, I'm talking quite a few years ago, there wasn't any. And I hope, and as I am an adult now, living in Winchester my whole life, I see more and more people with disabilities around our town trying to navigate to find accessible handicap parking. It has changed a lot since when I was younger. When I was younger, it was extremely difficult, say, to get an ADA parking spot. Now, and getting a plaque card. Now, it's a lot easier for people because of the ADA. Unfortunately, what I think has happened here in the town of Winchester, which I hope we can correct tonight, is the fact that we need more accessible parking for people with disabilities, our seniors, and also for people to age in place in Winchester. I find when I talk to people from the DAC and other people in the town who look for handicap parking, a lot of them are going outside of the town to go to other towns to buy products and services in those towns because we have so many limited spacing, number one, in Winchester as far as parking, but equally and more important and just as difficult is the handicap parking. We only have a few spots in Winchester. Having more accessible handicap spots, as we've recommended through the DAC, I think certainly will be a positive impact for residents in Winchester. Because as we try to look at the demographics in the future of Winchester, we need more handicap parking, just as well as accessibility throughout the town. So hopefully, and I want to thank Matt for doing this, and I also want to thank my colleagues of the DAC for being here. We worked hard on this initiative, and we hope that you'll make the right choice in this area. Thank you.
Okay. Is there anybody not in the DAC, but anybody else in the audience that wants to give public comment on this particular proposal for those two spaces downtown?
I just have a question.
You can come on up, or at least get closer to the microphone so people can hear your question at home.
I think it's a great idea. What I was wondering about was the location near Brugger's. That sidewalk is quite treacherous, the brick, and I was wondering if that brick area sidewalk is is that part of the upcoming improvement plan?
That is not
It would not
included
be.
in the downtown improvement plan right now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. I have a question, but no other public comment? Okay.
Can I just add that, I don't know if it's obvious here, but there's a crosswalk right at that Brugger's location, so that was one of the reasons why we chose that spot, so that it would be very easy to access the other side of the street.
Yes.
As best as you could in that stretch of town.
Additionally, in that area as well, it's closer to the train station. We were thinking, somebody could actually, use that as well to cross and go near the train station as well. That's why we also selected that.
Okay. I have a question. I'm going to open up to my colleagues. I have a question actually about the other space, but start with Ms. Brady.
I think it's a great idea. I've said for a long time, we lost that parking spot at Church Street, and to go downtown, there's strategically placed handicap spots, but very limited. My question for Matt is, sometimes I go and I park downtown, and I'm like, this is a really big space. Is there any way that we can take a look at our parking spaces and say, can they be a little bit shorter, and somewhere or other we can squeeze in additional parking spots, be it we can add another, somewhere in the math it fits another handicap spot, or it just fits an additional spot somewhere as well to be able to take a look
Yeah, I
at
don't
that.
know. Have we done that in the past that you're aware of?
We've tried not marking spaces like along Church Street on the Common for a while. We had it just kind of open without spaces marked, and I think we found that people weren't as efficient, so we ended up marking them.
Yeah.
I think I can't remember the specifics of our space length, but it is pretty common to kind of what you see in other communities.
I could certainly look at it. I know the downtown action plan, they're looking at Main Street in particular, but I don't have a problem kind of just surveying the area and seeing if they're in the range that we would want.
I know, Matt, Brian Zucchelli, our former planner, had looked at that because when we were starting to remove parking spaces for certain projects and to improve accessibility, to Anthea's point, sometimes you park in these spots and you can almost squeeze in a whole other car behind you, a smaller car. But it's a little bit bizarre. So I think it's unusual. Brian said that it was within the standard of parking, regulations. But I think there are certain areas where we, even if you knock a foot off, by the time you get to the end of the road, maybe you've added another spot there, or you've created room for another accessible spot where you do need that room, or even to unload or anything to the sidewalk or the street. So it's not something that I find in other communities, to be honest with you, is very generous parking spaces that we offer here. So
I think we used to have 2 motorcycle spots. I think there's but it does feel like on Main Street. Vernon, yeah.
Yep.
I could have parked there when I was 17 and driving my parents' station
And learning to park.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Bill?
Just a few. Did you say that there were handicap designated spots in that Brugger's lot?
Yes.
Okay, they're just not on your map.
The map is only public spaces.
Gotcha. Okay, that doesn't change my opinion. The map is very lopsided with the lack of handicap designated spots on the western side of the Quill Rotary and everything else. I'm curious. I see that there's 2 that have also seem to be in the Laraway Road lot down there.
Yeah.
Have those been available during the MBTA's
Not
construction?
during the project, but they will go back afterwards.
That's good to hear. I am very disappointed that we've lost those for so long, too. But it seems smart to have more spots on that side of the railway in the event that the parking lot gets taken away again in the future. Those are 2, I'm sure, very important spots to the people who need them. So this all makes a lot of sense to me.
Mike? And then I do have a question.
Thanks, Michelle. And I just want to say thanks to Lisa and DRC. It's helpful for us to see through your lens. We don't always do that. And so bringing these requests forward, it's helpful to us. I certainly am supportive. One of the things that I think we could also do a little bit better at is kind of shortening the crosswalks. The one in front of Brugger's there is particularly concerning to me because if you can't see somebody coming across that crosswalk from either side. If there's a car, if there's a van, and you could be in a wheelchair and trying to, peek forward to see if traffic is coming, it's pretty untenable, and I'd like to see us have a policy of any time we put a spot in, any time we have a crosswalk like that we are extending out that curb to the street so there's visibility for the driver and for the pedestrian. So that area is dicey. Certainly I approve this, but I think we need to do some other improvements in that area. I don't know what you think, Matt, but and again, to the other point there, I mean, those bricks, I think, were nice at one point, but it's, I think, well past their useful life. And I know we have some different modifications in the town center, maybe doing kind of stamped brick or something that's been approved by DAC, but it just reminds me when I see projects like this and requests like this, how much work we still need to do, because it's very difficult to traverse, and those bricks are especially difficult in the winter.
Yep.
So they pop up, they move up, but they also
Very
are
uneven.
slippery, right? So.
Yeah. Especially, and appreciate Ms. Herman's comment that it certainly is that tree right by that spot, right by Brugger's window, and uneven bricks. It is rough. The question I had, and I would echo Mike's thanks and everyone's thanks. We need the spaces. The loss of it with Laraway Road for a year and a half and counting has been challenging, right? 2 important spaces at either end of that, the train track, one that would serve all those businesses along the common. It'll be good to have this back. My question on that Church Street spot, so I know where the crosswalk is. Where is the curb cut relative to where you would get out of that car to then access the sidewalk by the town common? Do you have to go all the way back to the crosswalk? Because certainly at Brugger's, the crosswalk is right in front of where you'd park. At Church Street, it's behind you.
It is a little bit behind you.
Is there a plan to put a curb cut in, potentially, where it's at the front of the car? Maybe this gets to Ms. Brady's point around, length of parking spaces, but would it make sense to have a curb cut, in front and behind the car?
Are you talking about a crosswalk or just?
Well, there's a crosswalk behind, but I'm thinking if you were to get out of the car and to try to access the sidewalk immediately versus having to go backward into the crosswalk or into the curb cut.
There is space behind it. If you think about when you're approaching the common.
Yes.
On Church Street, it kind of curves the way that the curve, the regular just curve on the side of the road curves through. So that would be an oversized spot, which would make it ideal for parking. But it is possible to design it with a curb cut to the sidewalk on the common behind it, I think. I think there's enough room to put a curb cut there. It would have to go over the grass. You'd have to extend the sidewalk slightly, but it would go to the upper area of the sidewalk. So it is something to look at. I think that's a great idea, because otherwise you have to go forward several spots to the crosswalk in front
By
of
the Congregational Church,
or
correct.
You have to go back to where the curb cut is, all the way around the side of Waterfield.
Yes.
So it's a very good point.
Yeah, so maybe just look at that, because I think it's clear where you would access that. So the crosswalk itself is closer to Studio on the Common, but there is the ramp down at the curve by the Salt Marsh Terrace. But if there's space, or where you place the spot itself, if there's a way to access, I think, going out of your car forward as well as back, depending on how, and where someone is unloading from, whichever side they might be on. So maybe just look at that. I'm not trying to take away more space, but if there's a way to make it accessible, that might be useful. Any other questions on these 2 spaces from anybody on the board? No additional public comment? Okay. So we could take a motion, if we would, and thank you again for all of the work. And Matt, I'm glad you didn't give us all the iterations of the spaces that you didn't consider, but we clearly have a need, and this addresses some, but not all. So it's a good step in the right direction. So thank you.
I move that we approve the downtown handicap parking spaces presented by the Disability Access Commission to install 2 handicap parking spaces, one on Main Street in front of Brugger's and the other on Church Street to the north of Waterfield Road.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing on these traffic improvements.
Thank you.
Well done. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. All right, our last hearing is victuals license, malt and beverage license. I'm not going to try to say the LLC, but doing business as Cafe Ducali, 959 Main Street.
Say Stella LLC.
Say Stelle L.
Say Stella.
Okay, well, thank you. You can say it for the record. Appreciate that.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. Philip Frateroli, Say Stella LLC, DBA Cafe Ducali, 959 Main Street. It's good to put faces to names.
There you go. So you are applying for a wine and malt beverage license. We have your application. Maybe you could talk a bit about the business and what you're hoping to serve. I think the vision for the property. I think those who have been here for a while remember it as a reptile store. Apparently, some people remember it as a video store. But if you could maybe talk about what you're trying to do in the business and then how this would help.
Sure. For the record, I remember it as a Uptown Video.
Yeah.
Which isn't exactly a relevant way to make a living anymore. So we purchased 959 Main Street in May of 2022. Some of you might remember it as a salmon-colored plastered building that kind of had fallen out of disrepair over the years as its usefulness kind of changed. There was at various points in the last few years, people squatting and living inside of it. It was a upholstery store. It was a iguana store. We found quite a bit of iguana droppings in the back and inside. So we purchased it. We operate Ristorante Lucia in Winchester, as we have since 1985. The original idea during COVID was we were looking for a space that could serve kind of as a commissary for the restaurant. We make a lot of pasta in our restaurants. We make breads for service in the restaurant and a lot of our desserts. But that happens in a few different locations. And if we had a commissary where we could do everything under one roof, we just probably make the products better and kind of saves on some economies of scale. So we were looking for a space like this. We looked in Woburn and kind of the less expensive areas around where we operate our restaurants. No offense to Woburn. But this property came for sale, and it was immediately very appealing to us because not only could we kind of have that industrial like baking capacity, but we also, being next to 955 Main Street, would have a built-in kind of base for a retail operation if we wanted to do coffee and breakfast sandwiches and things like that. Also like a light lunch service. We always intended to do pizza, something that's kind of near and dear to my heart. And as somebody, I have 4 kids, all under the age of 9 in town, and often I get asked by my wife to bring home a pizza or 2, actually more than 2 now, and a bottle of wine for us. So, I've always been successful in business, kind of creating something that will serve my own needs. When I was in my 20s, the original Ducali in the North End kind of served as a place that I wanted to hang out. And then in my 30s, Kennard Tavern in East Boston was the place I wanted to hang out when I was a little bit older. And now, as a father and commuter and everything else, one-stop shop to pick up pizza and a bottle of wine is what I want to do. So we applied. So long story short, it's in the GBD3. We had to change the zoning, which was a non-conforming use of retail iguana store, pet store, exotic pet store, to allow for the cafe and bakery use. And we applied this past summer for a retail liquor license so that we could sell beer and wine to go. And we're not granted a hearing, so we decided to try to apply for a quote-unquote restaurant license, which would allow us, under new state law that changed, making permanent something that happened during COVID, the ability to sell beer and wine to go. And So that's really it. I mean, it's a pretty big space. It's almost 5,000 square feet. We have a capacity for seating of about 29 based on the calculations, the zoning, the capacity calculations. We haven't really thought that we'd want that many seats, but the space is the space, and it's a pretty big space, and we have the ability to seat that many if we wanted to. I'm trying to think what else. So I personally grew up in Lucia's. We, as I said, opened in 1985. In 40 years operating in town, we haven't had so much as a warning from the ABCC or anybody when it comes to liquor control or the sale of alcohol. I've operated multiple licenses in Boston since I was in my early 20s, same thing. So I think in terms of a resume of operating in town, I don't think you're going to get a longer resume from at this table in terms of, you know, an established track record.
That's certainly good to highlight. No, it's on all of our applications. Have you ever had a violation? And if so, when? And I think having that kind of a tenure with no violations makes you a low risk, I think, operator.
And it's beer and wine as well, which is obviously a little bit less of a question.
Yep. Before I go to the board, is anybody here from the public that wants to talk during this public hearing? If you could both come up.
They invited us both. All right.
We have a couple of seats. You can always drag one more.
That's all.
I will go left to right, which means my left, Phil's right.
I just have a statement to read. Good evening, Select Board members and Town Manager Rudolph. My name is Michael DeRosa, and I'm the resident and owner of 961 Main Street, which directly abuts Cafe Ducali. I am opposed to the issuance of a wine and beer license to the future Cafe Ducali located at 959 Main Street in the town of Winchester. My opposition to this proposal is rooted in my feeling that I have fallen for a bait and switch. At the beginning stages of the project, I was approached by Mr. Frateroli, who expressed his desire to renovate the building and use it as a warehouse and storage for his current property and businesses. I was told by Mr. Frateroli that he wanted to use the space. I was later told by Mr. Frateroli that he wanted to use the space as storage and as a facility to make pasta, baked goods, and bread for his restaurants. I was approached a third time by Mr. Frateroli, who expressed his desire to open a cafe bakery on the second floor of the building and use the first floor or basement as a bakery to supply his current restaurants. According to Mr. Frateroli at the time, his vision was to sell coffee and baked goods. Regardless of the changes, they were welcome changes and improvements, as I'm a firm believer that a successful Winchester business is good for the community. During a zoning board meeting, Mr. Frateroli was issued a change in zoning to conform to a cafe bakery with several conditions, to include, 1, weekend hours of 7 a.m. to 5 p.m., weekday hours of 7 a.m. to 5 p.m., and weekend hours of 8 a.m. or 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Second, he was asked to install a privacy fence, which was completed. Third, work with the DPW in town to make improvements to parking, as there currently is, I'm not exactly sure how many on the property, but I would say about 3 or 4, to improve signage and spaces. 4, add gutters and downspout. This was completed. However, since the building has been renovated, they have come down and are currently being held up by my bungee cord. The alley that separates the two properties floods whenever there's a substantial rainstorm. In the proposed beer and wine license, Mr. Frateroli has changed the hours of operations to 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. on weekdays and 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. on weekends. He has also increased the seating capacity, which was approved for 20 to 24, which now I'm hearing 29, without prior approval to my knowledge. Mr. Frateroli was approved for a bakery/cafe, not a restaurant. In the Boston Globe article, Mr. Frateroli says he plans to conduct a lunch and dinner service selling pizza and meals. This was never discussed or approved. I feel that a restaurant will be far more detrimental to the neighborhood in terms of pedestrian and vehicular traffic versus a bakery, and therefore I am against the issuance of a wine or beer license. Respectfully, Mike DeRosa.
Thank you, Mr. DeRosa. You'll have a chance to. I'm going to take the rest of the public comment. Yes,
I'm
correct.
Ronald Nath. I'm on the board of directors of 955 Main Street, which is the building that directly abuts it. We've been discussing this issue in our board meeting, and I'm sorry, I don't even know your name.
Michael DeRosa.
Hi, Michael.
Nice to meet you.
And everything that he said we brought up as well and discussed it, and our concerns are voiced by Mr. DeRosa. In addition to that, what we are quite concerned about is that the increased volume of traffic will be detrimental to the neighborhood. There are a lot of medically needy patients that come in and out of our building, and having a lot of excess cars, which nobody can control, is maybe detrimental. In addition to that, the parking, there's limited parking for Mr. Frateroli's new business, and it is clear that the people that are going to use that business are going to park in the 955 Main Street lot, which will limit the parking of our patients. And so we are very concerned about, especially about the parking and his plans or ability to monitor it and make sure that none of his patrons park in the 955 Main Street lot. We have not heard of any plans that would put that into effect.
Okay, we'll come back to that as well. Okay.
Good evening. My name is Terrence Torella, 30 Florence Street. I've known Mr. Frateroli and his family for about 30 years, and I wanted to come here and support Mr. Frateroli and their plans to open this business. I think the plans that Mr. Frateroli expressed and the use cases of families like mine who often find ourselves going to restaurants to get dinner and would like to be able to purchase a bottle of wine to bring home are very relevant. I also think this is a part of the town that there's been a lot of investment in recently in developing in the North Main Street area, and I think the progress that's been made, as demonstrated by the work that's been I've observed over the past year and a half on the site, demonstrate the care that the Fraterolis and their business have taken to take a property which, in all seriousness, has been many different use cases in the video stores. What I remember, something that frankly has not been a great spot for a business, and are investing in a part of our community and a neighborhood that frankly needs, I think, a little bit more investment. And I hope that they'll be successful in developing this business, which would be, I think, a great benefit to myself and the other residents of the north end of the Winchester neighborhood.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Listen, I am a Philip father. Philip told me don't talk. I know Michael when he was a little boy. I'm very sorry for your grandma. Listen, I was in the front of the settlement 40 years ago. They come look for me in the north end because they was to do the new downtown in Winchester, and they convinced me to open in town. It was the best move I did. Yeah, I don't agree with a lot of this thing. It cost park, it cost this and that. We was the first one in Boston 40 years ago. Was a law you're supposed to stay 600 feet from the church. I'm sorry for my English. English is not my second language. And we was the first one over next to the church, where they do the mass every day, and we never ever complain by nobody. We are nice people. We love Winchester. When we moved in Winchester, Floppy was very young. And I think it's a very small place. Don't bring no traffic over there because you see the 30 people, only for the local people. And plus, he made a deal, it's something I never do. He closed all of the back window to not put nobody next. He closed all of the windows. I told Philip to run the restaurant, you got to build a couple apartments. And Philip told me, you don't want to keep hard time, you don't want to build no apartment, you don't want to make people mad. Listen, you know, with the business people, we cannot come over here telling you cannot. He spent a lot of money in that spot. And that whole thing was to look very bad. There was a Winchester look bad. And only, I don't want to say that, only a person like the Philip went over to spend over there $1 million. I never want to spend that kind of money in the area. But he done a wonderful job. But we not that kind of people. We are the kind of people, if we want to live the world better the way we find. Thank you very much.
Sure. And I was going to say, Mr. Fraterelli, Philip, if you wanted to come back to some of those concerns, I wanted to hear all the comments.
Well, first I will start with offering over 600 letters of support of the project from people in and around the neighborhood and the town of Winchester. I don't really want to speak directly to the concerns from next door because I feel like I was bait and switched. We, as my father said, scaled down our project a significant amount. We closed the windows as per on that side of the property to Mr. DeRosa's request. We also committed to making the bakery completely electric and sustainable so that there wouldn't be any gas emissions next door to his house. And then at the ZBA hearing, we hear some concerns that all of a sudden sprung up. I think we've been really good neighbors. I've tried to treat Mr. DeRosa as I would a member of my family, and so it is what it is. As for parking, you know, we want to coexist with the building next door. We think that a significant amount of people coming to our bakery will either be working at 955 or be visiting 955 or are leaving 955 and want to get something on the way out. So we really view it as like a copacetic relationship. The fact that parking continues to be brought up is just like anybody who's spent time on North Main Street knows that there's ample street parking on North Main Street. And we're actually, my attorney is in touch with the condo association right now to discuss the possibility of maybe after hours use just as a precaution so that we don't get a call on a Sunday saying that somebody parked there. We want to be good neighbors. And the other aspect of the 955 is this the RFP that the town puts out every 10 years for use of town land. So, you know, I appreciate, you know, that building and what it means, but at the same time, they're benefiting from town land at less than market value, and maybe there's a conversation that can be had over that as well. Yep. I don't think, you know, some people are upset about what the ZBA approved us for, but that's done. We're not going back in front of the ZBA. This is a question of a liquor license. The scope of what this hearing should be as the licensing authority in town is if there's a need. And I think anybody you speak to in the town of Winchester and those 600 people will attest to the fact that there is a need for a beer and wine license in that area of town and in the town generally. So, and I tend to agree that the ZBA's decision on how to use the property is ZBA's authority. We are, as you say, the liquor license authority for the town, and that's what we're going to consider tonight at the board. Not concerns about abutters and parking. I think you could put signs on your business, don't park here, you can work with 955 Main. That's not for us to enforce. And to your neighbor on Florence Street, North Main Street is a focus of, you know, expanded development and infrastructure, as well as, you know, dense residential, first floor retail. There's a whole North Main Street improvement. And this, I think, fits right into what we're trying to improve in terms of streetscape, retail. You're not putting condos on top. That would be a whole different zoning idea. But we're trying to invest and actually drive more people to North Main Street to live and to eat and maybe work out or whatever. So I appreciate the fact that you remember that. So thank you for that. So I'm going to turn it over to my colleagues. I don't know who wants to go first on the merits of the liquor license and questions for Mr. Fraterelli.
I have a couple. And I'll certainly echo what Michelle said about the use is really something that's more for the ZBA to have dealt with, and they did. Looking at your application, on the very first page is a number of boxes that you can check as to what sort of license you're looking for. And one thing that's interesting here is that there's a box for restaurant all alcohol 100 seats, restaurant all alcohol 70 seats. There's also a provision that we have for all alcohol 24 seats, but that's nowhere on here. And we've heard you reference the number of seats a couple times today, whether it's 20, 24, 29. But you've checked package store wine and malt. What does that mean to you, and what do you plan to do with your liquor license if we issue it?
Was that the June application, or is that the September application?
That's the June application I'm looking at. Is there a September application?
There is a September application for what's, I mean, the nomenclature is kind of confusing. There's differences between, the way I view it is on-premise or off-premise, but now on-premise allows for sale to go, as per a state law that changed in April. But to answer your question, we don't want to operate a restaurant. We want to operate a cafe and bakery that's vibrant during the day and allows for people to take away and bring food home at night, in the early afternoon hours to bring home to their families. Does that answer your question?
It does help a lot, yeah. And I don't know if Beth can answer this or not, if we're allowed to put conditions on a grant of a liquor license that makes it clear that we would only be granting it for grab and go and not for, we can't do that?
I don't think you can put conditions on a liquor license. no.
Okay. So the proper paperwork we're looking at here, is that the one? Can I show it to you? Is this your September submission? It's hard to find. And these just come in a big stack to us. So not always very well organized. It references section 12.
Section 12 is the restaurant license, quote-unquote restaurant license, and then section 15 something is the package store license or off-premise license. And there's also, and I spoke to the ABCC today, there's also a provision that if we had a section 12 license, we might also be able to get an off-premise license. To kind of think of like what Italy does with, they have a restaurant on site and then also stores where you can buy beer and wine.
Gotcha.
But you're not applying for a 12-seat license, right? Or are you?
Section 12
Okay.
is the restaurant license, so that's
Got
what
it.
we're on premise. We're applying for that.
Okay.
We applied before, but we were not able to go forward on that.
Mike?
Thanks, Michelle, and thanks, Phil, for coming in and being willing to invest in the community. Again, certainly your family has a long track record of success maintaining a good relationship with the town. Certainly your facilities are always top-notch, and you handle the things that we worry about, safety and health, and so I expect the same. I feel like this is consistent with the neighborhood. I mean, this is literally Main Street is very much mixed use. There's pizza places along the way. There's other restaurants and establishments. So I'm okay with it. My only concern really, which maybe is helpful to some of the concerns of the neighbors, is just the time that you're restricted to be open. You know, is it until 5 o'clock on both times? I mean, so I'm less concerned about people coming in, constant traffic late at night, keeping people up, and parking. So it's a very limited amount of time for the business to be open from my perspective relative to other establishments in town. So but I think it does answer some of the questions and the concerns about the neighborhood, that it's not a place that is going to have a lot of evening traffic. It's going to be relatively people coming and going throughout the day, which is consistent. So I'm okay with it there. As Michelle said and Bill echoed, I mean, this is really the future of this part of town. You guys just happen to be move faster than we do. So that's
I like the hope that we were part of the spark for the needs for the planning board, and I forget what they're referring to it as. I think the end. MSMD. I don't know what the second M is for, but it's you.
I don't. So maybe nobody knows. We don't know, but
and you know, in this new, and I spoke to the town planner, and these are uses that would be allowed. You know, obviously the zoning code governing North Main Street is a relic of the early 2000s. The GBD3 and some of the use tables and that don't really even call for restaurants, you know. So this is something that would be allowed then. Obviously, that's going to change everything on North Main Street, and you know, and there is an urgency of now for us to be able to secure a license, because once all that zoning changes, then there might be no licenses left for us. So, you know, that's kind of why.
And you've been working on this property for a while, investing in it, right? It's
2.5 years.
2.5 years. So it looks high quality, as I would expect. It looks clean. It blends in with the neighborhood. And I would expect that over a period of time, as the use of it is experienced by the neighborhood, that you will work with the neighbors and tweak things as necessary. It may be that in front of your establishment, you'd want to have a 15-minute spot or something like that during those hours for people to come and park and go, so they're not taking up other spots. I don't know, but you know, I'm encouraged by you really taking the lead for that part of town and some new zoning, and I think it's right sized for that area as well, and the use is right sized. So I'm certainly supportive and appreciate you're willing to invest in the community. Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Anthea?
So I just want to clarify, which is what Bill asked as well. Do we in our packets have, is this that comes in on page 3, the new application? Because page 1 and 2 is, to my understanding, what was submitted in June, which is no longer the package store wine and malt application, and that's.
I mean, I don't know if it's for me to answer. I was told that there would not be a hearing for that application, and I was encouraged to, well, not encouraged, but I decided in consultation with council and other people that this was the way to go.
So that's then a question for Beth or Michelle or Patty. What am I looking at the right thing to be looking at the application for? And I ask this because there's
and the public notification we did was on premise. I think that the word restaurant license was used on premise.
So is this the application? This is the new application, or this is something different?
This is June 6th application.
Correct.
Is the only application that I have.
Right.
That's in the original packet here.
Okay.
So now
And
what
then
do
what's
you?
this?
The license is 30. A new license for wines.
Restaurant, wine,
Yep.
and malt beverage. Okay,
Yep.
so did we change forms? Is that what happened?
No.
Is that
They
really?
do look different.
Yeah.
I give you
They
that.
look totally different.
In the one that looks like an online form that seems to be from early in September,
Well,
does not
this
list.
form here
One's
is
an
not
ABC
our form.
Right, one's an
This is the
ABCC
ABC
license,
form.
which is the second one, Anthea. The first one's
Okay.
the general license, which is ours. The second
Yeah.
one that looks so different is the ABCC
ABC.
licensing authority.
And then this is also the ABC?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I ask this because what's pointed in the packet is that there's a discrepancy in the hours on the June application, which we have before us, and then in what you've told us about being open through 5 p.m. in the ZBA. So just making sure that that's.
That's my understanding as well, and I believe town council has reviewed it, and it's his opinion that there would have to be a modification to the existing ZBA permit for the change in the hours and the seating.
So
The seating.
if there needs
So
to,
the-
go ahead,
yeah,
Beth.
sorry, the ZBA application approved 20 seats, and the ABC license is for 24, which I think is the minimum to have, to be able to have that.
Well, the 24 is a select board internal rule that we could ask for an exception to, but the rule states, and I can pull up the exact wording of it, but it's for a seating capacity.
Yeah.
And seating capacity is a load, like a zoning load question. It's not a number of seats. We had this issue at Lucia's when we tried to clarify the number of seats or the capacity of downstairs, and the building department relied on the load capacity of seats, not because it's a function space. We could have 10 seats or 100. It's really the calculation based on the square footage. So based on the square footage of the dining area, we could have up to 29 seats, and we might have way less though. We might have, 15, but that's not what the...
Yeah, it's one is a physical definition, one's a use definition, and I mean, I agree with your distinction on that, Phil, and...
But if it's a question that is of controversy, then I would ask the select board to make an exception to their own rule.
Well, before I go there, I would want to point out maybe the other inconsistency, Phil, is that the hours of operation from the ZBA, as brought up this evening, is 7 a.m. to 5. Your application is until 6.
Yeah, that might have been an oversight on our part. I intended it to be 5, and so I'm happy to change that to 5.
I think that might be one way to do it as well, Beth, versus going back to ZBA. If we have to...
What I'm looking at right now is 5 o'clock.
We definitely have 6 in here, I promise.
So
it's a lot of pages on our site.
So
too.
just I don't think we have that specific piece of paper that was provided to the board, which is why maybe we're giving you questions that sound like we're on 2 different pages.
Let me find it.
It feels comfortable with 5, right?
This is what we have, and it
That's what it
says
sounds
6
like.
o'clock.
So we
Yes.
don't, I don't need...
Yeah, so under that general application, page 2,
June.
Bill, proposed hours of
This
operation.
was the June.
January. We don't have that.
This is
Anything
what
from September. We don't
Okay,
have
I
that.
can,
It's not in your folder?
yeah, this is the one I sent. I handed, but
I don't.
But he's willing to accept what's really less than what,
Yeah.
it is, so I
If
noticed.
you're willing to operate
Yeah.
till 5, I think that's fine. There is a discrepancy, so if that's what's approved and you're willing to operate until 5, I think that's resolved. Seating capacity, number of seats, if that's a select board policy and capacity exists for more than 24 seats, I'm not sure if we need to waive anything, but I would defer to my more seasoned colleagues on that one. I think we can get the hours of operation, and if we were to take a vote, and if we have to clean some things up, we could certainly make sure that those hours of operation are what has been approved by the ZBA, right? We would. Yeah. I don't think we should approve a business to operate beyond what their permit is allowing them to do.
No, to be consistent.
Imagine.
It makes life easier for everybody.
Okay. So Beth, with the hours of operation, do we have any other, do you think business to send back? Because
I think that's it.
The use is the use, and the ZBA's weighed in. The liquor license is the liquor license, and that's what we can authorize or not. Okay, just want to make sure we're not taking a leap here that we're not supposed to take. Any other questions? Around, no? Okay. So is the board comfortable taking a vote this evening? We could take a vote that's conditioned on anything else. I don't know if there's anything more that's resolved. Assuming that any motion would describe the hours of operation as approved in the ZBA decision. If people are willing to take a vote, unless we feel like there's any more information that we need. Although we are the liquor granting authority people, we are not. Maybe we're the 50-minute parking people, but that's a whole different hearing.
Yeah.
If you want that. We are the people, but
Always
that's
want more
not
hearings,
today. So I don't want that motion necessarily blended with this.
It won't be blended, I promise.
Thank you. Just placeholder for later.
I would just defer to the town manager's office do we need to make it conditional on the paperwork being in order?
Here's a question, sorry to interrupt. When do you plan on opening?
as soon as we can. I think probably realistically it's probably going to be in the spring at this point.
Okay, so it's not like you're putting wine in next month and
No.
we're rushing to get this done.
So, I mean, I'm comfortable with moving forward. I think that, they've been working with the town for a long time here, and I think we just make our approval consistent with the ZBA decision. So
I think that makes sense.
you know, and anything that's different from that would not apply. So we don't need to tinker with all the mechanisms because it's been approved at this point.
So someone can make a motion, but I cannot.
I mean, is that what we want to do? Is everybody cool?
I see a nod from Mr. McGonagall.
I am very comfortable with
Okay.
that. The only reason I delay it is if we wanted to just amend the paperwork, but if we can do that through our
Do that in
motion,
yeah. So
let's just get it done.
I move that we approve a common victualler's wine and malt beverage license to Seistele LAC doing business as Cafe de Cali, 959 Main Street, and that that issuance is consistent with the ZBA decision for the property.
Seconded.
Any additional discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
And I vote yes. And we will close the hearing. And I would say 600 letters might have been a tad of overkill, but, you know, good on you for getting that kind of support.
Well, he's not telling you he has some.
There's actually more coming in right now that I haven't included, and
You can tell them to stop at any time.
we didn't have
Now would be a
directly.
good time to tell them to stop.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
You want to bring him home with you?
Thank you all for coming.
They're stuck in,
Yes.
they're
Put 'em in
stuck
the
in a
file.
no man's land in
I
the
have to
middle of
send
the
all my
table.
thank you cards, so.
Well, it's going to be there for a while because nobody can reach it.
Right.
So.
Alligator arms. Where's the reptiles when you need them?
No, those are short
I
arms.
know, exactly.
I mean, I got to give this, this was submitted, I got to give this.
Yeah, you do. All right, next up, we have some
Public hearing.
Climate Action Advisory Committee appointments. I'll wait for Mike to come back. Oh, there's Stacy back there. Okay. So we have Climate Action Advisory Committee, where we have one new candidate to interview, which we'll take up second, and we have two reappointments for Rick Eno and Ruth Tamarki. I know that as though these are reappointments, we don't have necessarily the original application, but thank you, Patty. This would be for a third term, is that correct, for each Mr. Eno and Mr. Markey? Okay. We want to take those up maybe one at a time, Mike? And then Mr. Thierry, if you're here, we'll interview after we take these first two. Okay?
So you just need me to approve.
Just one at a time. Mr. Eno first?
Yep. Move that we reappoint Rick Eno to the Climate Action Advisory Committee, term to expire August 31st, 2027.
Second.
Seconded.
Any additional discussion?
Just thank you to Patty for pulling up their prior applications and CVs.
Mr. Markey, do you want to speak when it's your turn to be reappointed, or would you like to speak to Mr. Enos?
I do think it's a second term, not a third for each
No.
of us.
Ruth, no, because basically what it is, this was in 2020, and your terms were only 2 years.
You're right. Thank you. That changed.
Yes.
Yep.
Thank you for having the information, Patty. Okay, so any additional discussion on Mr. Enos being reappointed? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and I vote yes. Okay, next, Mr. Markey.
I move that we reappoint Ruth Trimarkey to the Climate Action Advisory Committee, term to expire August 31st, 2027.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and I vote yes. Okay, congratulations, thank you for continuing to serve. And Damian Thierry, if you could come to the table, we have your application. You just introduce yourself. We have your details in our packet, your interest in serving, and anything else you want to say about yourself. And then we may ask you questions, we may not, but take it away.
Sure. Good evening. Thank you very much for the opportunity. I am Damien Thierry. Our family of 5 moved last month from Romania to 12 Webster Street, Winchester. Our 3 kids, Emma is in Morocco, William in McCall, and Amélie is in the high school. I want my children to have a livable planet when they grow, and I fear that the main risk that they have is climate change. Now I dedicated my profession and until now my professional activity career to this subject, to climate change. I was managing director of an organization running circular economics workshops, climate resilient workshops in Romania, having impacts at national and European level. I was European Climate Pact ambassador. I was impressed by a Winchester climate action plan, which I find very pragmatic and coherent. And I would really like to help as much as I can implement it as a volunteer in the Climate Action Advisory Committee. I have a lot to learn. I'm new to the community, but it'd be great for me to be part of it and to contribute. Thank you very much.
Great. Thanks for your interest in serving. Any questions? Nope. You certainly seem to have a long history with it. Anthony, any questions? No?
I just appreciate that you were able to take a look at our website and
I was gonna say
find
the same
something
thing.
interesting to you and apply to it. And I think that's really excellent, with an excellent way to get involved, and a great committee in town that has a lot of interest and is doing a lot of good work.
I was noting the same thing, actually. So thank you for finding it on the website. Thank you for having it on the website. And I'll make a little public service announcement for anybody watching now or later. Any open commissions and vacant positions are always posted on our agenda, so you, like Mr. Thierry, can find openings and apply. But I was thrilled to see that that's how you found it. That's why we post it. That's why we keep it here. And thank you for throwing your hat in to volunteer in town. If there's no other questions, I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we appoint Damian Thierry to the Climate Action Advisory Committee, term to expire August 31st, 2026.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And I vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you very
And
much.
good
Thank
luck.
you.
Get to work.
Thank you.
Hard to imagine we're on the second item of our business agenda, and it's 9:03. But here we are. Water meter replacements. Oh, Bob moved. Okay.
Thank you for having us here tonight to talk about everyone's favorite subject, water meters. So I've been here about 18 months, and Dan has been here about 6 months now with the town of Winchester. And we've kind of taken a high-level look at our infrastructure in town. One of the things we've noticed is our age of all of our water meters. We're between 20 and 30 years old for both of our water meters. At the same time, our unaccounted for water has been creeping up, so we haven't been capturing all the water that's coming out of our plant. So Dan has spent a lot of time over the last several weeks looking at different type of meters that we want to take a look at, different type of technology, what that can do for us as a department, and what that can do for the residents of town with a new meter. So we've kind of looked at the technology and picked out a bunch of items that we'd like to see in our new system. And I'll let Dan take over. He's got a presentation here of a few slides that kind of go over what we've been looking at.
All right. Thank you for having me. Our current water meter inventory is believed to be around 7,300 active services. Roughly 75% of our current meter inventory is upwards of 20 to 30 years old. Our current water meter technology that we're using is called positive displacement. So that's a mechanical meter, and just installing those right off the bat, they're not as efficient, they're not as accurate as technology is today. On top of this, we have about 800 accounts that are estimated. So those are something that we want to clear up quickly.
That's certainly some lost revenue, right? 800 estimated.
Right.
Absolutely.
And that's actually a measurable percentage of our 7,000 meters as well.
Yeah. Are we going to, is this a project that somehow pays for itself?
Yes.
I believe so, yeah.
I mean, we don't have all the numbers, right? But certainly there is some percentage of revenue that's not being collected by just due to the accuracy and age of our existing meters. We haven't quantified exactly what that is, but certainly there is the possibility that over time revenue will help offset the cost of this project.
I can tell you're very excited by this, Pat, so.
I mean, I just want to compliment both Bob and Dan. You know, Dan, as you said, been here 6 months to come. You know, this is one of the first things we talked about. I think it takes great initiative to come into a new community and identify this as something that we should take charge of doing. So
100%.
Compliments to both of them.
Yeah, thank you both.
And I think there might be savings just from administration, right? If we move away from the drive-by metering to remote, right? I mean, that's
Correct.
less on our staff, right?
Right. Well, yeah, right now we have one staffer goes on, does the drive-by, takes them about a day to do it all. When this is fully implemented throughout the town, it can be real-time data, so it's being collected at all times. So the technology we would like would do that, and that way we can determine if there's a leak out there, whether it's in our system or whether it's in somebody's irrigation system or a toilet running, anything like that, we'd be able to pick up right away.
Yeah, we've had a lot of problems with that over the years, as you know. Just historically, people that are snowbirds go away for the winter and they come back and their house is flooded and frozen, and or irrigation leaks were probably the most common. But you know, it turns into tens of thousands of dollars that we typically are inclined to forgive, but it's still loss.
Lost revenue.
Wait a second. I was going to compliment your office for calling me when I had
It's actually our decision.
But I didn't get a break on that bill.
It's our decision, and I say inclined. I said inclined. I didn't say whether we do or we don't. But we're sympathetic, is what I should say, is when people get a huge bill after they've been away or it's unsuspecting. And I think we've tried to put on some of those controls, but this seems like a more efficient way as well.
And newer technology also allows for a customer portal, so you can have customers that are looking at this data themselves, getting alerts themselves. So
yeah, that's cool.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
And in all seriousness, that sounds great. I will be the most active log in on your customer water.
I think
Behind Beth.
I think I've used your number one for the pilot.
Yeah.
There you go.
You always do the water and sewer article, so.
Yeah, I'm gonna start a spreadsheet.
That's true.
It seems like this has like financial benefits, sustainability benefits, staffing benefits.
the above.
Yeah, I'm trying to find a critical thing about this.
Yeah, I mean, I think
time frame.
From a staffing perspective, I think it will allow us to shift that existing employee to
Tree inventory.
leak detection work or other things. I don't think we're going to eliminate a staff position because we're not.
If we
doing
only have
drive-by.
one staff as right now assigned to water meters anyway, so I mean, there'll still be needs for a maintenance mechanic for the meters and whatnot. So
Right now, we're very reactive. Putting the system in place would just make us very proactive.
Mm-hmm.
Is this what is typical in other communities, or is this, are we kind of catching up, or are we?
It seems to be an uphill trend.
Right. So we both have had experience in past jobs. When I started a program like this when I was in PVD, Dan finished up a program like this when he was in Medford, so both those communities are heading those directions. A majority of the communities aren't doing the new technology yet, but like Dan said, it's trending in that direction.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Got it. So with 500 as a pilot,
Yes.
one going to the Brady household, 499 TBD.
Let's not jump ahead, because
Time frame?
for us to get the information that Anthea wants, we have to get the whole town involved.
The pilot
Fine.
program does not include a customer portal.
She'll have to make her own spreadsheet, is what
For
you're
sure,
saying.
yeah.
She can't log
Most
onto
certainly.
the portal.
That's correct.
Understood.
A newer spreadsheet.
Right. Maybe she can help you
I
launch
did
yours.
just pull up my photo of the last meter reading I checked.
I'll tell you, we are amazed at some of the pictures of the meters that we've seen in houses, how old they are, meters that we've never even seen before.
They belong in like a museum.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
what you're saying.
I was going to say, the
Most
person whose
certainly.
basement this is, we have very different basements.
So realistically, so spreadsheets and portals notwithstanding, when would we look, what would the schedule be, sort of, funding rollout of just the first 500 meters? This is a springtime thing. I mean, we're coming into the winter, but I'm just curious about how do you see this rolling out? If
So-
we're like, go for it. Yeah.
We'd have to go to town meeting for the authorization for...
In the spring.
Right, and then we'd have to go to a RFQ, request for qualifications for people to get pre-approved for the bidding, based on the technology that we're looking at. So it would probably be, my guess would be late summer
Next
before
summer, yeah.
we could, actually start getting them installed.
Okay.
We can do a little bit work now ahead of the spring with Weston Sampson, who we work with on water projects, to start thinking about what that RFQ is going to look
Right,
like.
the RFQ, getting all that set,
so that we're ready
to go.
once that money's available, July 1, to put that out.
Put it out to bid.
Yep. And then the idea is that if that, initial program goes well and we're happy with the technology and that type of thing, that we would roll out a much larger. We kind of debated internally whether we should kind of span it over a number of years. I think ultimately we decided that we would reap the biggest benefits, that we would just kind of rip the Band-Aid off and do kind of a town, it's not going to happen overnight, but do a town-wide implementation.
That was going to be my next question. And I think the other piece of, pilots, whether this is maybe a report back from Dan and Bob and Beth at some point as you get closer to the RFQ. Yeah. Pilots are about gathering information and measuring success. So in that RFQ or in the plan, what are the measures of success? What says it's good? We definitely want to move forward, and this is the technology. Are you piloting 2 different kinds of meters? Are you piloting certain settings? Or I think that'll be good to know what's the pilot going to tell us that tells us that we should scale.
So I
townwide.
think the RFQ would happen before the pilot program. So
Right.
we would identify the meter before we even start.
Yep. So I just think it'll be useful for us in terms of, you would run the pilot for, 6 months, a year?
Yeah, however long it takes us to install those initial 500 meters. And there'll be some process on our side to figure out how we're going to work through that. How are we going to get into properties? How are we going to have these, how are we going to select which, I think we've talked about kind of highlighting or targeting the estimated accounts as a first kind of initial.
Right.
Seems to make sense.
Right. Because those are all the meters that need repairs anyways, whether
For sure.
the meter's out or the radio's out or the wire's out, so we got to get into those houses.
Like we have
anyways.
no data.
Right.
Okay. So I just think, we can, I know tonight you're just looking for some guidance of move down this path, right? Like we're not sitting on the money. We don't have the RFQ. You're looking for sort of a sense of the board, which I think you're hearing some pretty good enthusiasm for. I would be curious around, what success looks like, even based on your own experience. And if you're tweaking something based on that initial pilot, what changes? Doesn't mean not to move forward, but there's always a go, no go. And what would drive that for us? Any other questions? I'm sorry that you don't get your portal straight away. Go right ahead, though.
Sorry, I have more questions.
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
So one would be that you may have mentioned this, and I was so excited about tracking my own water use. Would this be a Springtown meeting article from the select board using the water and sewer?
So we haven't kind of worked out the details, but the intent, I think, is it would either be retained earnings or a borrowing, understanding that we're going to go forward with this larger borrowing in the future. We haven't kind of worked out those details, but yeah, the idea is that it's a water and sewer enterprise funded project. Yep.
And then the second question would be, if we're going from 500 estimated meters, and is there going to be a process in place that if we go from estimated to true metering and people's bills just go wildly out of hand or just are wildly different because of use? Like, is there going to be a process for looking at their bills and sort of rolling out, it's good to upgrade this technology and to focus on areas where it's most critical to upgrade the technology, but could that also for those users then be like a huge change to their quarterly bills, and how would that be addressed within the pilot?
So once we get into these houses, the ones that the meters are actually working, then we can see what the meter is saying. So we can find out what the actual
So there'd be like
bill
two.
would be. So if we get in and the meter is stopped and it's not running, we'd have to start at 0. So you wouldn't have that big jump. So, but the meters are going to be more accurate. So there is going to be a little bit of an adjustment.
I think we saw it ourselves when MWA switched from estimated to true measurements, right?
Right.
So, and I think just in the news, anecdotally, I've heard myself, other communities, right there, and we'll have to kind of think through some of those questions.
Yeah, it's an excellent question. So do you sort of, you pay one rate or you pay the previous, average usage and you ramp up? It's an excellent point. And we're not going to know yet, but I think we could expect some increases and more accuracy in higher bills, some lesser bills, that there's leaks or, oh my goodness, I didn't quite realize what I was doing, right? So we're going to see some, but I think we should be thoughtful about how to address that.
Yep.
And what parameters,
Sure.
where do we have some grace periods or where do we have some ramping up?
Yep.
I don't know. That's a good point.
I think the customer portal too will help people understand just how much water they may be using and where
Right.
they can cut or reduce.
Start yelling at their teenagers, that kind of thing.
I have one like that.
It's that turn off the sink while you brush your teeth, right?
Those kinds of things, yes. Yes,
I just have a quick question. If it does seem to be that, in general, the usage is showing up lower in the past and now it's going higher, can you shift the rates? Because right now, there's certain, like if you go above 20 units, you go up almost double in some of the rates. So maybe you could slide that scale of rates so that, you're not, you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Something like that maybe could be considered, because I know we're all sitting there saying, oh geez, our water bill could go up more than we would have.
yes, it could.
Yeah, no, if there's a big gap like that and we're going back because we've gone and checked the meter, I wouldn't anticipate you'd want to charge them a newer rate, a higher rate based on water that they could have been using earlier.
Yeah.
But we don't
Right,
make those
but
decisions. Yeah.
if it turns out everybody has been wildly underestimated by things, then we can
We'll
look
look
at
at
water
that.
rates. And
Yeah.
It would be
But if it only was
surprising. I mean, people are
500,
paying a
yeah.
lot, for water. I think people in town are, what I've heard, they're kind of maxed out on our increases over the past several years. And some of it's for capital, and so it all gets folded in. But I don't think residents would want an opportunity to further, raise their water bills. So,
Right.
so
where do
we've
you
got to
play
be
with thresholds?
We've got to be mindful of that. Just, if there's more revenue there, great, but hopefully it will come from some of those meters that aren't working or aren't producing. And so,
Yeah. Okay.
I'm saving a question for when Matt comes in down the road.
Yes.
I'm going to write
Well,
this one down.
So thank you for coming
Thank
in.
you.
I think this is great. Thanks, Dan, for jumping on this. And I think, all the lessons learned from the other installations, in Medford, Peabody, and what do we know and what can we anticipate, I think that'll be good and keep us posted.
Thank you very much.
All right. Great
Thank
work.
you.
Thank you. Our next item is rather easy, I think.
Can we keep
Oh, yes. Do you have a question? Sorry.
keep Bob for
Should we keep Bob for which?
4?
Do you want him back? Can get him. Yeah, can you get him? Thank you, Stacy.
Thanks, Stacey.
We're going to get to 4 straight away. So, because I think number 3, I'm going to.
It's tough though. He was so close to getting out of here. To get him,
door closes.
once he goes through, we should have a rule. Once you're out, you're out.
Thanks for catching it.
Proud of the pilot program, Anthea.
Yes.
First meter.
Ouch. Oh, that you have to go chase him now. So the health department, the clinic revolving fund, there's a memo in our packet asking us, and they've also, this memo went to FinCom and us to request that the cap on the flu clinic revolving fund be raised so that they can actually acquire the appropriate number of vaccines and run our clinics COVID vaccines, and we also do flu vaccines. But they're asking for an increase of $40,000 to allow for those expenses to be increased, and the comptroller may want to weigh in on this one. But this seems like a pretty straightforward vote of the board. This is to raise the cap for this fiscal year. If there's any future change to the revolving fund and sort of raising those ceilings, that would be taken up in the spring by the Finance Committee. But this is a one-time increase to allow them to actually expend money, and they actually have a balance that far exceeds the new $140,000 cap. So I would say, Beth, if there's any more context, or our comptroller.
Yeah, the only thing I would just add is that in order to raise a spending cap, both the select board and the finance committee have to vote it. I think finance committee reviewed it, but had a few questions, so they were gonna.
That's right. I talked with, communicated with Jeff today.
Yes, I believe the Finance Committee had the same questions, similar to what you had posed about the limit. Is it going to be going forward forever? But every year, the town meeting votes those spending caps. So depending on whether or not Jen wants, or the Board of Health wants to continue the vaccinations for COVID. Yeah, I ran down the stairs and I'm out of breath. It's bad. Recovering from a respiratory issue. But yeah, it's just for now. She's going to be running some clinics, I think, fairly soon.
Yes. In the fall.
So it's sort of imminent that if they don't get the increase, they probably won't do it, obviously, because they've already tied up the rest of their budget for that fund.
Yep.
So what do you need for a motion, Michelle? It's to raise the cap.
The cap by $40,000, making the new cap $140,000.
Okay.
Are we doing it just for this 1 year, though?
Yes.
Yeah, it's set by town meeting for future years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to get through that winter season.
Yeah.
And it can be adjusted in the spring if
Yeah,
need be.
and the Mass General Law says that in order to increase during the fiscal year, if something comes up like this and they have the money, it should go through Select Board and FinCom.
Sure.
Hopefully FinCom will review it again soon. I don't know when they're meeting next, but.
Yeah.
I don't recall. I know they met last week, but I didn't think to ask that today.
Yeah.
So we'll take the first vote. How's that?
Sounds good.
I move that we approve the Health Department's request to increase the cap $40,000 to $140,000 out of the Health Department revolving fund.
Second.
Any additional discussion? It is as straightforward as it seems. Okay. All those in favor?
Yeah.
Aye.
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 We're good with the motion? Ms. Comptroller?
The health department's revolving fund budget. Did you say out of the health budget?
Maybe I did. So
Want to say it again? We'll vote it again.
to exactly tell me how you want to say it, to increase the budget. So
By $40,000?
okay.
The revolving fund. Yeah.
So the total spending cap is now $140,000 for FY25.
Yeah, I think we got that. Yes.
So moved.
I think that's fine. Yes. We can move that. We can note Stacy's correct. I think that's what we voted. So.
Patty, does that sound right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank
I think
you.
we're good. Thank you.
That is what we're doing. We'll make sure the notes reflect that. Okay, next up, ARPA funds. And actually, do we want to do school building updates and appropriate the ARPA funds first?
Sure.
What do you think? I know so in addition to community needs grants, we actually have, for the high school gym floor, we've committed ARPA, but we actually need to take a vote this evening. So Beth, if you want to get us the specific language,
Sure.
it's in our packet, but we need to release those funds.
Yep.
The ARPA motions, I've got those if we want them.
You've got that one?
Yeah.
If we could take that one first, and then we'll move into other ARPA.
Okay, this is on the gym floor.
Yes, please.
Okay. I move that we allocate $1.3 million of ARPA funds towards the completion of the Winchester High School gym floor replacement project.
Second.
Any additional discussion on that? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Excellent. Okay. So now let's go to ARPA funds. We did not take a vote on community needs 2 weeks ago. I will hand these out.
I also have a motion to rescind some other ARPA
Yes, let's
funds.
take the motion to rescind. Thank you.
Okay.
Take that next.
I move that we rescind $65,099 of ARPA funds approved 7/18/22 for the public safety dispatch equipment.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Okay. Thanks, Mike. Any other votes on ARPA money at the moment?
I think that's it.
Stacy, anything more? Okay. Come on up to the table if you could. So back to where we were 2 weeks ago, we had we had set aside $300,000 for community needs about a year and a half ago. Went through an RFP process, heard from a dozen and a half organizations here in town. There was a list of recommended projects 2 weeks ago that we did not vote on. We have some updated recommendations from Mike. If you, Mike, want to talk through
Yeah.
some of these changes.
They're just
I will
my
note that your
recommendations. Yeah.
recommendations now exceed the amount of money that we had put aside, so.
That's all my recommendations, Michelle. But
So
we
that
can,
could be problematic.
it could be. So I guess, my sense is, we put out this, the requests to the community, and obviously we received some great responses, and I think that they, on balance, are all valid, and we should do our best to try to support them. There's a lot of work that went into these applications, and they're needs that we typically don't have visibility to. So I'm inclined to support them all in some way or another to a certain degree. And, some of them I kind of moved some of the money around a little bit to make room for others and be consistent with what we're doing. Particularly, as we heard from Ms. Stott earlier, the WinPAC request that we didn't respond to at all in the prior conversation. I think that we certainly should. It's a need of this community, and the WinPAC organization itself is it's a really an organization for families and the district to work together to move forward the needs of the special education policy and also execution of things like this, playgrounds, infrastructure. So I made that Winchester Community Music School. I thought was another one that we should fund at some level. It's a nonprofit organization, great community resource. The Meals on Wheels, another one, just getting a little bit closer to, what they requested. So what I wanted to look at, what was kind of missing from our conversation last time, was what was requested by the organization and what was being recommended, right? So if, an organization requests, $50,000 and we give them $1,000, I don't know that that's really responsive to their request in a meaningful way. So I think, as I said, the time and effort that went in this, we do have other funding sources that are available to us, like our hospital gift account. I don't know what our balance is there, but I was hoping that we could respond to these using some of the additional funds there. As you can see, we just coincidentally had money walking in the door from a reversion from our 22 ARPA appropriation of $65,000. So, I think that we can use some of those funds that were returned to us and put them back into the community if we want to exceed it. But our hospital gift account money, from a policy perspective, is what we've traditionally used for these kinds of projects. So,
So let's take them maybe one at a time. And speaking for me, we had set aside $300,000. If we use all or most, I think that's sort of keeping consistent with, hey, ARPA was about, community reinvestment across the country. It was money. It was a way to actually not just pay for infrastructure and, increase the Wi-Fi at the library. It was potentially to spread it more into the community. That was the goal. If we have other funding sources and there's merit, we can look at that gift account. But tonight I want to focus on what's doable within ARPA timelines. And so let's take, Mike, the sort of the amendments, and actually let's take them one at a time and let's vote them.
Yep.
And we can make motions for, let's start with Arts Winchester. We can make a motion for that. There's some agreement.
Sure. I move that we approve appropriation of, unless there's other questions.
I have other questions. So I know you want to take them one at a time, but in looking at the full scope, I would like if we could discuss the differences.
We are going to we're going to go right down the list.
Okay.
And then discuss the differences, yes.
I just want to make sure that we're not, okay, that's fine.
Yep.
Is your concern that some of them may increase the overall number, or
right? If we change that overall number, I don't want us to get to the bottom and not. But I'm just curious about the differences highlighted in yellow and blue.
Yeah. Okay. So and also the yellow. So I had a question about the Red Lock Farm one, and the yellow one was we already did. The schools picked up the tab on that request as well, so that's a little bit less on the buses to Right Lock Farm.
So let's talk about the differences then,
Yep.
to your point.
Wasn't Right Lock Farm.
Yeah, that was a different applicant for the farm. So we can start there.
They're two different requests. So the van I have a question of, and then the other one that was the request that got funded by the schools.
Which Right Lock Farm didn't apply for.
The
It was
farmer's
a
market.
different organization that applied for the bus.
Yeah.
Right, but I'm just saying the schools picked up that request, but I'm
But
saying
that's
under,
not reflected in Right Lock Farm's $50,000.
it's not.
It was the farmer's market who applied.
Correct.
So that's why that one is in yellow under farmer's market, because I just, that number was the number that included
Okay.
the buses. So that's why I'm saying, that's why that
No,
one's in
no,
yellow.
it didn't, though. When we recommended $1,650, that did not include the buses.
Right,
Right.
the 3,130 included the buses that got resolved.
Right.
Okay.
So it'll be less than 3,130.
top.
Yeah.
Well, to Anthony's point, if we're trying to move where we are and we want to keep mindful of the ceiling, let's start with we'll focus on blues and yellows. So the first blue is the Permanent Street Tree Committee. That was an amendment that was made last week to double that so that the inventory wasn't tapping into the Van Aken Fund.
Can I make an amendment to that amendment?
Why
So I
not?
know the assistant town manager spoke with David Miller, who was the proponent for this request, because this is a piece of software that the town will utilize. We are subject to our procurement requirements, and so we would request that we keep it under $10,000, which allows us to not have to go out and get multiple quotes. So
$999.99.
I think we were, yeah, 9,900. And I think there was some flexibility in the proposal that Mr. Miller put forward, so I think that was agreeable to him as well.
Because we are paying for it, they're a part of the town, so it's going to be a check
Okay.
directly to the vendor for us, which is different than most of these others.
Okay. So I'm going to keep a little spreadsheet of where money's moving.
265.
Because why not? So next up is the farmer's market, 1650, 3130.
Less the, whatever was already
Yeah,
funded.
so that's just,
It was 1,100 or something that was funded there, so.
do we? have the
Yeah,
exact
this is where I
number,
start
but-
getting confused, because they had multiple projects.
Right.
So I don't know what line items we're actually approving. On the prior memo, we had called out specifically what it was we were funding and what we weren't.
I mean, we can come back to that one. It's one of the smaller ones. I mean, if, but I highlighted.
I have it. So we're here. The
Anna's Fund, $15 vouchers between now and the end of October.
So that's the $4,000.
That's the
one right below
$4,000.
I
that.
think the
Sorry, you're
1650
right.
was the fence.
1650 was the electric fence.
The fence.
At the farm for a solar electric fence. That was 1650.
And the bus rental was 1,100. And what adds up to 3,130 also is the rototiller rental of $380 in their budget spreadsheet. So, but again,
So Mike, what is your ask on
what's
this
your
one?
question?
Just to, fund the remaining parts of that request. But, this was, before they had funded the schools had funded that other bus piece. And so I don't know that they need the, funding for the rototiller or anything
That already
else, but
happened, yeah,
that
they
already
say that
happened.
it was for September 21st.
Yeah, I don't know if that they need,
Plantings.
So then, is it just a solar fence then? Is it just 1650 that's left? Is that our understanding of what they
yeah,
want?
that's why that one was in
Okay.
yellow.
So.
And I
six-
separated out the Anna's fund as well.
So 1650 will stay as the ask.
Yep.
Okay, next up, Friends of Recreation, that was multiple projects.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that the request there is really like meeting a very specific need, and it seems that they put a lot of work into the putting together a plan to solve problems that we've neglected for a long time. So I didn't know why we didn't fund that more substantially, but it seems like it's, our rec department is been kind of going gangbusters since Nick took over, and is doing really well. And so I thought, we should be responsive to to that and give them more opportunity to expand their programs in a meaningful way. And, we rely on donations for a lot of these kinds of projects, and they aren't consistent, and it takes a lot to get them to come in the door. So I feel like as far as our ARPA community grant section, this is kind of hits it right down the middle. So
Okay.
obviously I didn't recommend the full amount just because I'm trying to keep it balanced, but I think they can do some substantial work with.
So, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to ask, within that proposal, what are the specific projects in that $25,000 that you would propose that we fund? So $1,000 we've said is for painting supplies for the bathhouse, and they don't have.
I would just ask what their priorities would be with a funding request that with.
I have great concern over that. I think we have to identify specific line items here that we're funding, and I think
Let's ask them. They're here. Lauren's here. Rich is here.
Well, we have to be able to give awards to, the grant awards have to be very specific. So they asked for 56,000, and we want to give them 25,000, but for what exactly?
Yeah, and I'm also very hesitant now. Like, we had a process, and that process involved giving an application and detailing what you were going to do and everything else, and we followed it. I'm very hesitant now to give certain applicants the opportunity to amend their applications or supplement their applications where others might not have that opportunity because they're not here tonight. With the Friends of WinRec, there's also, an issue where their initial application sought approximately $27,000 worth of funds, and then they made an amended application after the deadline for $56,000 worth of funds. So if you're basing the fact that you want to potentially grant $25,000 off of a percentage approach on an amended, subsequently filed application, again, I have concerns because that goes against the process that we kept and have adhered to for all the other applicants.
I don't see that we have, actually, Bill, I just want to push back a little bit there. I mean, with a lot of these that have come in, we have given less than the amount that they've requested, and that's all I'm saying. And I would say that if, when they ask for multiple specific appropriations, we ask them which ones we want to make the appropriation for. It's included in their application. So if they say, hey, fixing the bathrooms in this particular facility is what they want to use the money for, then we can make that vote. I mean, that's what we've been doing.
And that's what we did, but now we're kind of going back and redoing a lot of things, and we're giving preferential treatment to certain applicants. No. And I have a big concern with that. And on top of that, I mean, if you want to get into the details of the Friends of WinRec, I mean, this was a very difficult one because these are things that I know all of us really want to see. But I really do not have, I am not comfortable giving a third party the responsibility of repairing certain things like bridges that really need to be taken on by the town, or repaving parking lots and roadways, and that's part of their application. We went through this stuff very detailed, with a very fine eye as to what was best handled by the town, best handled by these parties, and kind of going back and relitigating all of that right now, I don't think it's fair to a lot of the applicants here, and I think it goes against some of the best interests of the town and some of the best interests of what ARPA itself is supposed to do.
That does not sound like it's based in reality to me, Bill. I've got to be honest with you. So I think I don't delegate my authority as a board member to someone else, and they say vote this way, and then I automatically do. We're here to deliberate based on what this process is. So some of us lead certain initiatives, and we bring back recommendations to the board, and we talk about it, and we make adjustments. I was, and frankly, what was submitted to me last week was not anything I could rely on for information as a memo. It was not helpful, it was not informative, and so that's why I went through this process of doing my own. So we could deliberate properly on how to get this done. I was also told that we reached out to all these groups and asked them questions, and we got information. I found when I heard from people that wasn't true at all. So
that's not entirely true.
So
we in the specifics of us reaching out was through the town manager's office to reach out two groups where we were going to fund a portion of the application to say, if we fund a portion of this, is that going to, if we fund the purchase of windows, will you be able to complete the project? If we, not to reach out to everyone to see what's feasible, what's not. We very clearly reached out on, if we were to award it like this, does that work for, are you as an applicant able to take that award? I think that happened in 3 or 4 situations. It did not happen with everybody. It happened in like specific situations, like sort of purchase but not installation of things in many cases.
Right, and I'm just saying we should extend that to everyone that put an application in. And
Well,
when I look at the applications here, I mean, when we first sent this application out and screwed it up from the very beginning.
Whoa.
I'm sorry, Bill. No, you weren't here. You weren't here, Bill.
Yeah, but that's not called for anybody, Mike. I don't care who did it.
I'm not blaming anybody. You weren't here. I'm just taking responsibility for the fact that when we sent this out, I think we didn't put a limit, and we cast a very broad net, and we got in over $4 million of requests. And so my point is, I'm comfortable that
2021.
yes.
2021.
2021,
But
right.
this application that we're discussing right now is related to what happened in 2021 in that if you took a Venn diagram of the organizations here and the organizations there, they overlap.
Yeah, we actually proactively contacted them.
So that's my
Absolutely. And my question, did this application come in for Renza Rec on time or not? Was it in by the 23rd or not?
We received an application for, I believe, $27,000 and change prior to the deadline.
Okay. So
That's
that
what I
seems
have
to
in my
be,
records.
that's what I'm looking for in my emails as well. So it seems to be that we didn't reopen application deadlines to other organizations. So what was received, if it was $27,000, is I think the only thing that's at play, because not everybody else was able to amend after the fact. So of that $27,000, there's fencing and railings is there. We talked about this a couple weeks ago. Do we want to direct the DPW to take care of, $9,000, $10,000 worth of railing repair?
I think that was a big part of the decision-making process, is that a lot of these things on their list is something that we should take on as a town.
Exactly.
We should, like, if we determine that the parking lot needs to be regraded there, that's something that we should direct the DPW to do, not give an outside organization funds to do that. So, and I think, if that's something that we can do is within this application and identify that the bridge railing needs to be replaced and there's specific, it's end of the season that we need to prune through something that, we direct the DPW to spend some time, again, identify what those specific activities are and that those get completed before.
So everything in their application is something that DPW can do and that we have the funding capacity to do at this point. I mean, I don't care if we fund a DPW to do the work or if I imagine the DPW would sub out that project of regrading the parking lot. I don't know. Maybe they have it in their budget. I don't know.
We just take it one at a time?
Yeah, we take care of it. So that's great. But I mean, I didn't realize that there was, it wasn't brought up that there was a late application came in and that we were excluding a certain portion of the request. So.
We didn't have the application when we were here at our last meeting. The application came in subsequent to the last meeting, and it also came in with the statement that the deadline for some of these numbers might have passed as well, which gives me more concern.
You can come on up, Ms. Herman.
Thank you.
Thanks. So
this is specifically about the timing of the deadline of August 23rd.
Yes, so the original application was submitted the day before the deadline. On the Friday that it was due at noon, I had the final estimate that I had been prodding the vendor for days. It arrived at 4 minutes to noon on Friday. Unfortunately, I was outside doing yard work and didn't notice it until later in the day. So I did send it in prior to close of business that day. Well, the town hall closes at noon, but I got it in before 5 that day. Just to clarify, the full 56,000. Thank you.
So,
Okay.
you know, I guess my question then, if there are certain things that we can identify that Bob and the DPW can do that we can carve out of that application, are there still things that the DPW and the town can't do and would need to be funded out of that that application? I mean, I'm inclined to look at the full amount that they requested, especially that we're carving pieces of it off. It's probably going to be, I'm guessing, if we put $25,000 towards it, it will still be within that total amount they requested. And we can put it towards specific things if that's helpful. Maybe it ends up being 10,000. I don't know, but I imagine that they could tell us what are the things we could fund with that money.
And we need to get through a few more things. There's another, $26,000 on top of this additional $25,000. So, no, $46,000. If Beth, I'm not sure we may need Bob, but of wooden fences, landscaping, and replacing what the O'Brien Sons repair, picnic tables and swings, of those 3 categories, which things do we think we could get to, and which things not?
Yeah, I mean, I think we could certainly do the gravel parking lot regrade.
Things there, like, little projects, yeah. We have a playground front for this fence and gate replacement. Landscaping, I would assume that would be something you guys could do, or have, I think we actually even pay Heimlich directly.
Yeah, I mean, we can do a lot of it. I mean, granted, the purchase of wooden guardrail and the fence and just purchasing the equipment is the more expensive parts for us, but all the labor part is, we can easily do it.
Could we propose that the select board vote an ARPA project separate from the community grants to tackle some of these things if we came up?
Absolutely.
I mean, they've done a lot of work with their quotes and the vendors that they looked into, and some of them are even our vendors already.
Yeah, I mean,
Versus giving the money to a third party for something that we should probably in control of.
This would resolve a lot of issues.
And like O'Brien and Sons, they're a state vendor. I mean, we get big discounts off of O'Brien and Sons. I don't know if they.
So is there anything
get
on
that
there that
discount?
you guys wouldn't be able to do? And I mean, I look at this, it's the Friends of Rec, but I see this
I mean,
as the Recreation Department. I still think it's still us. I mean, these are projects that are coming through Rec, right? They're coming through Nick. So, it's not, I'm not writing a check to Lauren to then go, manage this project, right? So.
Well, that's what these are, is writing a check to the third party. That's what these are. We're going to write a check to the third parties that requested the money, and that's why a couple of these big ones were, we took the opinion that the town should own these, and we shouldn't write a check to someone else to do this stuff. We should write a check to our own vendors, figure out how much it is, and do an opera project internally for that.
So then let's come back with a plan to do that.
Yeah.
And
We had
let's move on.
requested $1,000 for the paint, for them to paint the building, or the bathhouse, I believe.
But what there, Bob, is, would you say that, we could fund separately that's necessary that you guys just can't handle on your own?
No, I mean, the strong landscaping part, the $8,000 we can
Okay.
easily take care of.
Okay.
Grading the parking lot, we can easily take care of. Replacing the 2x6 railings on the bridge, we can easily take care of.
I think the ones that jump out at me is the Weesaw, which obviously is a piece of playground equipment. DPW does have some additional money in their budget this year for playground equipment, but it's really mostly to repair and replace in kind. So if this is the purchase of a new additional piece of equipment, it's probably outside of what your budget would allow.
And I think this equipment is the one that was in place of what was removed after or actually it might have been before the
After we did the
playground
inspections,
assessment
yeah.
there.
Yeah, so I mean, it seems like those are the things that we should fund in response to their request. I mean,
So let's do it, though, through the town, with a timeline, not through this. And let's commit to a timeline so that Friends of Rec can know If it's ARPA, it's time limited. If it's DPW and it fits, or we have purchasing delays, let's get a plan together to knock out all these things.
Sure.
And let's understand how much is, Bill's guys spend a couple of weeks doing some of this work and other things we wait for, but let's control the project here and let's commit to getting as much done as we
Everybody
can.
agrees these are worthy projects. It's just a matter of our opera grants ending and third parties. It just makes more sense for us to.
What I just want to make sure we do, though, if we say we're going to do it, let's do it, not be like,
Yeah.
oh, there's a railing.
So this is my
You're
concern,
happy.
that if it's not in the budget and it's
Yeah.
not being appropriated and, and we can use ARPA to pay for something else to create room in Bob's budget and right, we can take care of things that
Yeah,
way.
definitely.
So we probably just would need kind of a formal recommendation, working with Nick of the Rec and Lauren and Rich with the Friends of the Rec to prioritize this and get it the project's funded on a timeline, whatever that is.
Okay.
And it may be that ordering the we saw, is something that we can do and have delivered, and it comes out from this ARPA community grant, and that to me seems like it's very simple.
And
So-
even ordering the seesaw, we have that commitment in place. We'll have a purchase order. We don't have the 12/31 deadline like we would with
Correct.
paying.
It's
these guys.
obligated.
So it's a little different.
Okay.
If we take it on ourselves.
Yeah.
All right.
And this logic will apply to some other
Yeah, there's a couple others. just like
applications
it.
as well.
Okay.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that we're not just saying, oh, the town can take care of that, and then we don't, right? Because without funding there and without the, kind of the wherewithal to do it, then this is how projects languish and don't get done. And, frankly, some of these are a little bit embarrassing for us that they've gotten to this point. And I'm not pointing any fingers. I'm just
No,
saying,
I understand what you're saying.
It's,
So Laura and I got to know each other well the last couple
Yep.
hours. So, I will give her my card and we'll meet on this and get a lot. I haven't been in the loop on this, but I've already met with some of my guys and have met up there and like all the strong landscape and stuff. We've already gone through most of it. And some of the replacement of the wooden guardrail we already have, on our list and stuff. So.
Okay.
So there's still a lot of the stuff that's
so you'll
already
come
on
back
the
to
way.
us with, after speaking with Lauren and speaking with the group
Sure.
and speaking with Nick at the rec and say, here are the priorities, here's the money that we need from these buckets.
Sure.
And, DPW can pick up some of the labor and some of the railing work and other things, the grading, but
Yep,
there's
absolutely.
going to be things that we need to fund, right?
Correct.
From that,
Yep.
okay.
Laura, I'll let you
Yeah,
come
I
up
can-
for one more comment.
Yep.
This is,
I just wanted to ask a quick question. We did have one vendor, a resident of Winchester actually, wanting to donate the roof and the trim and the fascia on the bathhouse, and I just wanted to sort of get a feel for, is that something that can happen? What would be the process for that? What can I tell him?
I think that was the portion of the initial proposed award of the $1,000 that we had reached out to confirm that donation was not tied to any other work, or whether whether 1,000 was sufficient to cover the full of that project.
So between the donation you got and the $1,000, it would complete the bathhouse work.
Correct. I'm just asking on process. How do I,
Yeah,
is he good
it's
to go to perform the work?
He can,
What do we need to?
So what, Lauren, what you, so what I'll need from you is just in memo form or letter form stating that they are asking the board to accept the in-kind donation of this amount for what they have done.
Understood.
And then
Okay.
that will be processed through our controller's office.
Perfect, okay.
And the board will accept that.
Yeah, the board will accept it.
As a donation.
Great, thank you so much.
All right, and you guys are
Okay.
going to chat and,
Yes.
yeah, cool.
all right. Next up, Meals on Wheels.
So this is, their total request was $3,000. We funded $2,500 of it, taking out the specifics for publicity and marketing. That was $500. That we determined was not appropriate use of the funds.
Okay, I thought when I was looking at their request, it was more, so that's why I had a hard time.
Yeah.
You had to look at the detailed budget that they provided as a supplement to their application.
Okay.
The $32,355 is their annual operating budget.
Right.
Somebody put that on their application page in error. Their project is $3,000, and we decided to fund $2,500
Okay.
with the 500
About the
carved out
marketing.
because of advertising.
Yeah, when I looked at it, it looked like the specific request was 6,000, so for adding it up, but it's fine if that's not,
Okay.
if they're okay with that amount of money, leave that at 2,500.
Let's go with WCMS. That's music school, Mike,
Yeah.
$20,000.
Yeah, I mean, it's a substantial project for a nonprofit organization. I mean, this is what the request was. It's why they responded, why we reached out to them to invite them to apply. Obviously, their request is substantially more, but, I know that they have an, ongoing capital campaign, and they're looking to fund this project and get it done. So I think it's a great asset to the community. Checks off a lot of the boxes for us.
So, Anthony and Bill, are you inclined to revisit your decision on WCMS?
Not particularly.
I would defer to Stacy on that, of if we could even fund a portion.
I'm not inclined to be in favor, so unless you want to
asked,
revisit
so-
your recommendation.
No, I would not, because the guidance that we talked about there was that it wasn't.
So what was the guide? So this is like, it's hard to understand that there's guidance.
The music
that we're not-
school
yeah.
demolition with a pool in the
Right, but
backyard.
is this a private school? Do people
No.
pay tuition to go? Is it
Yes.
open to the public?
It's a nonprofit organization.
That you have to pay
Right.
for.
It's a tuition-based music school.
I think it was a matter of public purpose. Is it a public purpose?
Sure. I mean, it's a music school for the community that is a nonprofit, as much as any other nonprofits that charge a fee to go there or use their facilities.
Yeah, I don't have the
so-
reason why we didn't.
So I think it was mentioned last time that it was private, and I think that's.
Well, none of the other people on the list, Mike, are people you have to charge to access, right? You don't pay to access the Common,
It's like
the
limited
network,
access,
the
yeah.
meals, the Griffin Museum. There's a lot of free events. So, I mean, you can't walk into the music school with your violin and get a lesson off the street.
Well, the music school does have a lot of free public events. Just-
Yes, but this particular capital campaign at this time doesn't stop them from having those public events that they've been having for years. And there's no other sort of tuition-based, the Council on Aging, street trees, arts, yeah.
I don't know. I think that, when you look at Right Lock Farm and you look at their request, certainly they charge for their programs, and they probably would be the one that's most similar
But they're not
nonprofit
asking for money for a van to transport their tuition-paying preschool students on field trips necessarily. They're using it to bring things to the farmer's market that everyone can access and to bring
I think
people
they
to
are.
the farm.
I think they are asking that. I mean, that was
But
mentioned.
if that's one purpose of which, but most of it is they have events downtown and they bring their stuff to the farmer's market. If this was just the transport van for the preschool, I'd have the same concern about a private music school. But it's not just a transport van for a paid preschool.
Yeah, I guess I don't see it as private. I mean, because it's a nonprofit organization that charges money for a service, and so it's fine if there's not an inclination to support their request. But I think that I wish we would have not reached out to them and asked them to apply if we were going to just categorically exclude them.
We would not have. If they had proposed an Indigenous Peoples Days, a celebration of Indigenous music for Indigenous Peoples Day, I think that would have fit squarely within the idea of ARPA, and I bet we would have funded it. But they asked us to fund what they asked us to fund, and I agree with Michelle. I think Anthea agrees as well, and
I just see Stacy's like looking back through mine. We talked about.
Yeah, I don't know if there's anything more public facing that.
It was like the way it was designed as a portion of the project and the timelines and some of the things within it. It was, in our discussion was where we felt it was not in the spirit of these grants as the other ones were, and like to fund a slice of that also is like when we're funding a slice of other things, they're very distinct pieces of the project. To take that application to fund a slice of it is like sort of vague and hard to say we're going to fund like 1/3 of this portion of the land demolition and not the rest of it. It
doesn't get to done.
But,
Yeah.
but that's what we did with the Anchor project, though, as well, right? I mean,
No, that's not. There were two projects proposed by
specific
ANCAs, and we
projects.
funded one.
Yeah.
We did one thing to completion and let the other thing unfunded.
Full thing of
This doesn't get anything to completion.
repair of their stairs.
Right, but it's still part of the same building and the same project is my point. But
No, but it's not. It's a different project. There were two separate projects proposed by ENCA, and we fully funded one of them.
Okay.
The front stairs to a building that the public accesses. Okay, let's move on to WinPAC. So we heard about playground and playground design. So if you could help us understand $20,000 there of the $66,000 ask.
Yeah. So, I mean, I wish this would be more of a conversation rather than just, us saying, here's what's been recommended. Now, come up with things that are antithetical to that. Here, the WinPAC application, I thought, met all of the, and I don't know the reasoning behind not funding it at all. Maybe there is one. But I think
there is. You've already heard it.
Oh yeah, here we go.
But this is but I know you laugh, Bill, and it's not funny to me because a lot of people spend a lot of time putting in this application. I'm not party to your conversations with Anthea about the reasoning for it. So that's why we're here. The reasoning's important. And when people come in here and they ask for money for kids at a playground to be inclusive, we should respond in some way instead of just saying we're giving you zero. We should say, where's this money coming from the hospital gift account, another way to fund it through ARPA, have a conversation with Dr. Hackett. It's necessary. And so I put money in there because I feel like we should at least respond in a meaningful way. And maybe some of the other projects they requested are being taken care of in other venues. But I guess.
So
wait, let me say something. Mike, I laughed because these applications came in over a month ago. Yeah. Over a month ago, I sat down, I read them all cover to cover. Anthea did the same, Stacy did the same, Beth did the same. We sat down for hours and hours and went through them one at a time, line item by line item. We then put together a memorandum, presented it to this board, and we brought it here last meeting. There were time-sensitive requests. We've continued to hear that. I have not heard a question tonight that we could not have answered last time. I've seen nothing but delays, and these are projects that need to get going. So I respect that you have questions. All of these could have been answered. That's my concern right now, that we're jeopardizing getting some of this done because we've now waited 2 weeks and we have deadlines to get this stuff submitted for all sorts of reporting purposes. That's why I laugh, because I do want to get this stuff done. And if you're raising these questions so that we can push DPW or some other opportunity to get this stuff done, I'm happy to do that, and I'm happy you are doing that. But a lot of work and a lot of consideration went into this. There were lots of reasons why we made the decisions that we did. And all of these questions could have been answered 2 weeks ago.
We started having the discussion last week, and I think
I shut it off.
And because it was getting a little bit too wild because I didn't have the information in front of me about what was requested. First of all, I thought the 1,000 that was requested for the Friends of Rec was what they were getting what they asked for. So when we have certain board members and staff members that take a project forward, the work is on them just as I do different projects. And so, but I want you to listen to what I'm saying, not just be thinking about what you're saying to rebut and negate what I said. So I think that these things are important. I think we need to get this right. That's why I'm asking these questions. I don't have any other agenda. I don't have any personal connection to any of these things, but I think they're all legitimate community requests. And if we can fund the majority of them in a certain way, my point before was when we got a $4 million request, we couldn't fund that. When we get a few $100,000 and we earmark a few $100,000, well, we should make an effort to then meet the needs that are coming from the community. So that's it. I certainly want to get this done. That's why I put together my spreadsheet.
I think we only have two more things to consider. So within WinPAC, if we were to give $20,000 or more, what was the thinking behind it, and what potentially could be funded?
Can I just
please
step in? So this is the list of items specifically that WinPAC had requested. The first was $8,000 to go towards the pre-K kindergarten playground resurfacing at VO. There's
Warrant article
existing capital appropriations plus some additional funding
For that
hopefully
exact
coming
thing.
at fall timing. So that's $8,000. There was a request for a structure at VO for $2,000. There was a request for 2 items at Lynch. I think we thought that Lynch is currently under construction. Hopefully that's something that could be worked out as part of the larger project. Even if it can't be worked out as part of the larger project, if I could just finish, please. It's not something we can use ARPA funds to do because of the timeline that we have with ARPA funds. So although that may be something we want to work into the project through other means and methods, it's not something we can do with ARPA funds, just given the timing that we have. And then there were a variety of things at Lincoln, Morocco, and Ambrose. Lincoln, there is funding to have the kindergarten play area completely redone. So I'm not sure how that works into what is being done with the school committee right now. The school department's kind of managing that project with funds that were already appropriated at town meeting. And then the other items, I think it was similar to the conversation that was had about the Winchester Recreation, is that some of these items could be purchased through the town as opposed to giving the funding through a third party. So I think it was less a conversation about whether this was a good use of ARPA funds and more just of a conversation about how we could more logistically make this happen, given, again, all the timing restrictions we have around these community grants in this 60-day window. So I guess, you know, if we thought working with WinPAC in the school department, if there were a few of these items we thought could fit into the existing play structures with the, you know, safe zones and everything we need, I think we could certainly work with, if Bob's agreeable, work with DPW to work with the playground suppliers we use to purchase these pieces of equipment.
And if there are timeline issues, which I don't necessarily think there are, we can still use money from the hospital gift account. We can be creative through our departments by funding other things. But if
the school department can fund the things.
Yeah.
Can I just say 1 or 2 things, please? I'll be very quick.
Yeah.
I'm on the DAC, and we've worked with WinPAC extensively, looking at the playgrounds. We have worked with Lynch School. We have worked with Andrew Morone and the school department on the Lincoln playground. We have worked with the rec department on the 2 new playgrounds that are being worked on. A lot of times the vendors come in with the most basic playground that is completely non-inclusive. They come in with cables because they're cheap and they're easy, and that way they get a low bid in. And what happens is we then get it afterwards, and we say this won't work, and this won't work, and this won't work. But not surprisingly, the price goes up, it doubles. For what is a basic inclusive playground with no ramps. We're not talking about a ramp structure or anything like that. We're talking about the most basic inclusive playground. We're lucky to cram it a little bit. And then we get told, oh no, this won't work, this won't work, this won't work. So what then happened with WinPAC, with Shannon at all of our meetings, and at our DAC meetings, with these different committees that we've been dealing with, is they then say to us, well, maybe you guys can bring in some extra money. Maybe we can put, what would be one structure at the Lincoln Playground that would be accessible, that you would like to add, like a Weesaw, or one of these, which is a seesaw that has plastic seating that can potentially have strapping, so that anyone can use it from A to Z. And they actually say, well, why don't you guys see if we can come up with this extra funding? So that's where that's coming from. So the Lincoln Playground funds were not for the kindergarten that they were asking for. It was actually for the extra piece of equipment at the larger kids' playground.
So similar to what we're doing with rec, can we sit down with DPW, maybe with the town manager, understand exactly the equipment that we may be able to purchase at scale or at a discount because we're the town, and let's see what we can knock off of these projects.
Which would be lovely. But all I'm just saying is that we've already dealt with school committee, we've already dealt with rec department, and we've been told that the funding isn't there. So that's all I'm just saying, is that this has not been a short, conversation. This has been meeting after meeting after meeting.
I appreciate that.
That's where we're just at.
Okay.
Thank you.
So is there anything that we can think, Stacy, I'm looking at you maybe, and I'm looking at Beth and everyone who dove in, is there anything on that list that we think we can accelerate the purchase of now? Or do we want to come back? I mean, if we're not giving a grant necessarily to a third party because we want to get this on our playground kind of DPW space, is there anything that we think we can purchase in the next 2 to 3 months
Yeah,
on that
I think
list.
so, with coordination with rec and DPW, absolutely.
And school, because.
And school, definitely.
They're all at
All of
schools,
this is to be located on school property.
And
so.
we can write the check, we can be in charge, we can coordinate, and I say we, it's
And
not me.
DPW can order the equipment, and that's all we
Right.
need to have in place by the
Right.
December
They may not get
31st deadline,
installed.
which is a different deadline than what we're giving
Yeah.
the community grant people, because we need to have some space on
So we
hand.
can control the timing. They may not get installed until the spring, but we can at least purchase them with the money. We can work with WinPAC to update them as to which of the wish list items, which may not be all, but some, are going to be funded.
Yep.
But we're not going to, tonight, hand them a check, or tomorrow, hand them a check to buy the things themselves. We're going to work with them to knock out some of these things on the list.
Yeah.
That's what we've agreed to do. And Bob, we're going to hold you and Stacy accountable for these two promises that we made tonight. That's correct.
Blame Bob, he'll blame me.
WinPAC. Okay. So then the last item is Right Lock Farm, and,
There's also a Council on Aging that was not highlighted,
oh, really? Sorry, where's that?
Oh, yeah.
the
sorry
third
about
row.
that.
Third row. Okay, well, I'm at the bottom anyway, so let's stay at the bottom. Thank you, though, for catching that.
So yeah, my only question, obviously, it's only yellow because those things I just had questions on. When this application initially came in for the first round, the motivation behind it was specifically because ANCA and some other organizations would support for families that couldn't afford summer programs at the farm. They would pay for those programs for kids. And then what would happen is because the kids had working parents or came from single parent households, they had no way to get to camp from where they lived. They had no transportation. And so this initially had come up as a request for a transportation van for uses like that to transport kids that would get free programs to the camps in the summer. And so my only request for it, even though it was kind of tangentially referenced in their application, was that the van have the capacity to carry passengers safely as well as transport produce and things like that to the farmers market and to other establishments. So that would be my only
Passengers
request.
and cargo.
Yes, that would be my only request.
To go back to them with that ask. Can
And
we?
your request was only
No, they I guess I made a minor assumption there. Our farm educators travel to various schools. They can safely and efficiently bring all the necessary education materials to offer a high-quality program.
I mean, a lot of the vans that you buy now are
Flexible. Put the seats in, put the seats out.
and if it's just for the summer period and everything, if you're if you're going to the farmer's market on the weekend and you're not going to school events during the summer, right?
Yep.
Then you do have the ability and the flexibility. So I'm agreeing that that amount is fine. I'm comfortable with. I just wanted to. I just wanted to respond to the original intent of the application that came in a while ago because that's what motivated it.
Okay. So I don't know if in the mechanics, Stacy, of making an award, if we move forward with this amount, would we communicate that expectation before we actually make the award?
I think it has fixed shelving on both sides, so I'm
Yeah,
not
I
sure
see.
it accommodates passengers. I think it's just a cargo
This is what
van.
was attached to the application. It seems like it's more of a,
Yeah.
Cargo?
Yeah. that is.
Well, I think we should have a conversation with them about that. I mean, I think the flexibility for it is important anyways. I mean, I feel like, does the existing van that they have fixed shelving? I mean,
I don't know.
it might not be something that they want.
Well, I think there's a difference between cargo van and passenger van, so
Yep.
I don't think the cargo van's made for seats.
Well, some of them, like those the Ford Transit ones that they have, are flexible for both.
Yeah.
And you can pull seats out and put them in, and seeing as they've already connected with Benella, maybe that's a conversation to have with them.
Okay, we're going to need to make a specific motion on that one because I'm not sure that, I think that could be a goal, but and yes, there's lots of configurations of vans. but we may want to communicate that expectation, but I'm not sure we would say you don't get to buy the van, but we'll come back to
There might
that.
be more money for the passenger accommodation.
And that's fine. The money isn't my concern. It's just, it's meeting the needs, of the community, which is, I think that what we're trying to do. So,
Would that change their request?
That's
Because
very
they're,
different from their
yeah,
request.
yeah.
Let's talk to them. So let's maybe not vote that one tonight, but let's talk with them. Okay, then the last thing is the Council on Aging. $10,000 where previously there was no recommendation.
yeah, I forget. I'd have to look at the application again when I reviewed it, but I think it's for
This is,
lunches and food for seniors.
this was a project from January to December 2005. 2025. It didn't fit with the timeline.
Yeah.
But this can be a hospital gift.
Right, well, that's what I'm saying.
At the time,
So
Yeah.
this- So my point is that we should respond to these requests because I think they are, maybe if the timeline is outside, fine. I thought that it was within from what I read. But otherwise, if it's a need of the community, certainly the Council on Aging is someone that we should be responsive to if they're asking us to meet basic needs for seniors here.
Yeah, it's clearly for calendar year 2025,
Mm-hmm.
but we can, I talk to Philip regularly.
We can do it in gift fund. All right, so with that, if we reach back out to the farm and understand flexibility on the van design, I think if, with the adjustment of $4,900 to trees,
99.
well, it's an additional 49.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
I'm just trying to go from the left column to a
Yes,
new bottom
yes,
line. Sorry, I didn't explain my math. So if I took our 265 minus 50,000, so 215,000,
The 269,876. I already
Well,
did the math earlier.
did you take out the 50,000 for Right Lock, though?
Oh, I
So I
did
think I
not.
have 220,876.
19.
That's what I have. But please check my math. And we can make one motion.
I think we should just.
Go
for my
ahead,
own purposes.
make your recommendation. That's fine.
If we could just go through the column on the far right and confirm, if we're going to make one motion to vote it as a block, just confirm the final dollar values for each of these, just so I make sure my notes are correct.
Well, I'll just go through each one and just make a motion for, so just say, Arts Winchester, $33,600 appropriation. Do you want me to do that? Or is that not right?
That's right.
No, I was talking to Michelle. I was sketching math.
Oh, okay. And then we can.
228.76.
The more specific, the better, Mike.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm trying. That's what I'm trying to do. I mean,
One motion per applicant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fine. We have the bottom line. Anthony and I both agree on our math, too. So anyway, but let's go ahead. So we did Arts Winchester. Yep.
For $33,600. The Permanent Street Tree Committee, $9,999.
Just 9,900. We're not going to do 99.
9,900?
9,900.
Okay.
Yep.
And then we can talk about the Council on Aging, how we fund that. The Disability Access Commission, $2,791. ANCA, $30,334. The Farmers Market, $1,650, and $4,000 to Anna's fund.
I think was it up to?
Up to
Yeah.
4,000.
Okay.
Okay. The Friends of Rec, that's TBD, right?
Well, it's $1,000 and a lot of Bob's time.
And I'm sorry?
And a lot of Bob's time.
A lot of Bob's time. Okay, $1,000.
A commitment from just Bob.
Friends of Rec, $1,000. Griffin Museum, $60,000. Historical Society, $7,251. Meals on Wheels, $2,500. Network for Social Justice, $4,075. WinCam was one that I had reduced down, but I'm fine if we want to stay with that number. $49,575.
Yep.
Winchester ABC, $14,200. And then
That's it.
WinPack, TBD, White Log Farm, TBD.
Yes.
Okay, and so what's the total amount that you got, Michelle?
220,876.
2,000.
220,876.
Okay.
Realizing that 50,000 is likely to go to Right Lock Farm in some way.
And, that there probably will be some money going for the purchase of equipment through WinPack and maybe through,
Quite
through
likely.
the Friends of Rec as well.
Right.
So,
But of this list, that's where we're at for now.
okay.
So it's 220,876 is the overall, the new left-hand column. So anyone can make that motion.
Move that we approve $220,876 to award community ARPA grants to the applicants as listed.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Can we just talk about logistics real quick? Just in an open meeting. What the plan is to do is to send emails out to the applicants tomorrow with the award information and with a grant agreement that they'll sign. And we'll process the checks tomorrow. And then once the grant agreements are signed, we can release the checks and they can come and pick them up. Some of these are reimbursement based, so there's not going to be a check for some of this, but most of them are going to be upfront. So I just wanted to let everyone know that's the plan.
Okay.
So I thought reimbursement we couldn't do reimbursement for that.
Well, just for like Anna's fund, they're going to give us, I think, vouchers for how much money they give in
okay.
vouchers. Or they're going to give us something. That was one of the reimbursement. I don't think there's
that's the
many
only
others.
one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So most of them are going to be upfront grants, and there'll be a project closeout report. It's the most simple grant closeout report ever that we'll send to them, whether it's in the DocuSign. I haven't decided if we're going to add that in or if it's just going to be emailed them out later. And I'll be the contact person for any questions.
And you're going to connect with Philip on those grants. So I thought it was funding through a contract, those things, and that if we contracted by, it would be fine.
With these
But
grant, it gets too tricky with that.
I get you.
And being a town department, we can contact him easily as to what he wants. It's a nutrition program that we could work with him on funding.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that they've been working on for a while, and I think that they've been looking forward to get off the ground. So if there's any way that we could fund it, and certainly the ARPA community grant is one, but it's just as appropriate for the hospital gift account funds.
Or an internal grant if we have a contract in place. There's certain things that we can
let's
do
bring it back
around this
around.
community program. Yeah.
For sure. Okay, so let's, and we'll be looking for some updates on equipment of various types. And maybe Stacy, that can go, or between Stacy and Beth, just updates in the town manager's report around WinPAC's requests and Friends of Rec's requests and what we've been able to do. Maybe an update, by October's 16th meeting, see where we're at, what the plan is. And if you could put that, Beth, in your report or Stacy's report, I don't care. But as long as we have a way that is published and we have progress, you can reach out to the farm tomorrow. And it's likely that $50,000 is good and safe for them, but we want to see what their options are to have something that both transports people and vegetables. So we'll see what they tell us. Okay, thank you. Thanks, Bob, for staying. It was certainly helpful to have you here.
Yeah.
Just like the fencing at Kinfield, there's inscriptions on the fencing.
That's one
of
we need
people
to
who've
talk about.
donated it. So, I mean, I'm not inclined to take that down unless somebody else wants to make.
No, I mean, that was
So it's
that was
donation,
sold
right.
for donations that went towards the playground renovation. So I agree, that's one we need to talk about.
Right.
You and Beth and Lauren.
As long as we have a commitment to move
Yeah,
forward.
after that, yeah, I will meet with them.
Thank you very much, Bob, for staying.
Thanks.
Stacy.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Stacy.
it.
Do you need me for anything else? Or?
Gosh, I hope not.
Just get out of here. Ken.
Close that door quicker. Thank you, guys.
Okay.
I'll move from my seat in a minute once I'm done.
That's fine. Beth, do we have any other school building updates? We voted the gym floor. ARPA?
Yeah, so I just wanted to quickly say we received the 95% plans for the Mystic School Heat Project. They did, they were able to submit the work order last week with Eversource. It's let me see if I can find my notes here. 150 kVA pole-mounted transformer that can serve a 400 amp service at Mystic School. So we are not moving forward with the 800 amp service that was discussed as an alternate because direction we heard from everybody was, we're not sure where this building's going to be in 5 to 10 years, so we'll do the minimal we can for now.
That's what we discussed
So
2 weeks ago.
that work order has been submitted.
Are those transformers, like, can we move them, from building to building? So
It's a pole-mounted transformer. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know the answer to that.
If you open up the street and connect it in the public right away,
Right. I gotcha.
I don't know.
So the one thing I just wanted to highlight is the bid schedule. This does have a filed sub-bid, which makes things a little bit longer. So the project is going out to bid on October 9th, and the bids will be due November 7th. So that was the first night of town meeting. So we are going to have an updated cost estimate within the next few weeks, and you all will have to vote your motions on October 10th. So hopefully we'll have the estimate before then that we'll use kind of as a placeholder in the motion, and then we're going to put this article towards the end of the town meeting warrant, and then we'll decide, if we need to make any adjustments to that whatever motion.
So, are we, kind of prepared, seeing this is not going to be done for this winter, like, what the contingency plan is? Do we have funding for that? And
I met with Nick last week, and we're making a plan to meet with the school department to talk about what our options are space-wise if something happens this winter. We're not able to keep kids in that building.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of options, so that's one of the things we need to talk about.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, so I think that's that. So next up, fall town meeting articles. I'm going to just, executive decision, we're going to skip select board committee updates. Yikes. Number 7. We're not going to talk about that tonight in the interest of time. Plus, I think we have some homework to do on performance reviews anyway. So we're going to get to fall town meeting articles, of which the package, and I'm not missing anything yet, Beth, right? Did we vote the things that we needed to vote so far?
I think so.
Am I in the right place on my agenda?
So this was that table. This is the most recent.
Yes.
List. It has 2 options for the FinCom.
Yep, and so we'll go through. So the first ones are ones that we may sponsor. The last page are potential co-sponsors. So last week, we talked about Finance Committee bylaw change. 2 weeks ago, there was some concern around the broadness of the option 1. So this week, I put forth option 2, which borrows from our neighbors in Arlington, which specifies that the bylaw change would be, the composition is 15 voters, no person holding either elective or appointed office other than the town meeting member, and no town employee shall be eligible to serve on said committee, provided, however, that nothing herein prohibits a member of said committee from service on another committee, board, or commission, when such service is permitted by a provision of the bylaws, the town charter, or a vote of the town meeting. And that last sentence, the members shall be appointed for terms of 3 years each, so arranged that the office of 5 members expires each year. So I'd like to see if there's consensus on the second option of Finance Committee bylaw change. I'll also update the group that I sent that to Committee on Government Regulations, spoke with the chair, emailed this and spoke with the chair this afternoon, and got a note back that, which I'll read out loud. Thanks for sharing the proposed language. This article would be well-timed and help inform the discussions of the Decennial Bylaw Review Committee by proposing an alternate solution. And that to concerns that were in Article 29 from spring of 2024. And our committee will review the language as we do for all proposed bylaws and fold it into our larger discussions around how the bylaws address committee appointments. So they, in concept, they have seen this. It does not get ahead of the decennial bylaw review. It would be folded into the broader bylaw changes that they're already undertaking. And they, in fact, have a couple of warrant articles the Committee on Government Regs is proposing in the warrant. Not this one, but a few others. So there was a question that came, actually from a couple of you, what does government regulations think? And while they haven't taken a vote because they haven't met to take a vote on this or other motions, it's, I think, consistent with what they're trying to address. So that's what I'll say as an update from a couple of weeks ago. So any thoughts and reactions?
I'm still very hesitant. I took your request last time, Michelle. I spent a lot of time reading the town charter, the bylaws, the Massachusetts Municipal Association resources that discuss this sort of issue. Various nonprofit and other third-party resources discussing finance committees and audit committees. And in the general spirit of things, and with feedback I've heard from people around town, I'm still not comfortable with it. I was given a specific hypothetical about like what having somebody necessarily maybe on something like the EFPBC. I looked into that specifically. I couldn't find any bylaw about the EFPBC, and it actually, from what I could find in our select board board and committee summary, a finance committee member is not supposed to be on that. It's supposed to be somebody appointed by the finance committee. So it's not required.
On that example, Bill, the town meeting vote, which the town clerk found in 1995, said of or by the actual vote of the town meeting. So
that's not the resource I have. So
okay,
part of my problem.
I thought we shared that a couple of months ago when that was identified in like July.
Yeah.
I thought, and actually I think we handed it out at table, so I don't remember that meeting, but you do have that town meeting vote. It was given to all of us.
If it was, I couldn't find it when I was looking through these things. And even if that is what it says, I don't think this is the right direction. And it's not something I want to rush into. So I put a lot of thought into this, Michelle, over the last 2 weeks. I do not say this lightly, but I think this is deserving and requiring of a bigger conversation, and I'm just not prepared to vote in favor of either of these options right now.
Okay. And that conversation will happen at the town meeting, but thank you for that.
I mean, I think this is one I pointed to as this language is much more specific. It's much more clear on what would and would not be permissible. It kind of gets us into compliance with our differing bylaws. I guess I'll say my concern is I think that was the July meeting that I was not at, so I hadn't seen that. I mentioned last time, I would like to know how we have evolved the bylaws such that we say FinCom holds no other elected or appointed committee, and then we have committees that are formed that are including FinCom members, and what's the sort of backstory to some of that. I think this is much clearer. It's much more specific. But I think, as Bill said, just the timing of going from these two, this motion, this one, option two, kind of coming before us for the first time now after changing from a conversation that we saw first 2 weeks ago, it just seems like it's something that gives an opportunity, or, could have been an opportunity to work with the Committee on Government Regulations and say, if this was, hearing that this was raised by town council, is this, what do we do to approach this? Is this going to be subsumed within government regulations approach? Is this something that we're going to do? Is this what, is this what Jay would recommend for us to sort of take care of the issue where things
It is what he would recommend.
Hopping back and forth.
And in fact, when we met with him and that town meeting vote and the town clerk, we said, what are the ways to remedy it? Because we have a sitting appointment that hasn't been filled relative to that specific EPBC town vote that hasn't been fulfilled by a FinCom member. So we said, how do we remedy it? Does the town clerk do it? Does government regulations do it? Does select board do it? Town council's advice was select board can do it and should do it. Government regulations was just starting the decennial review. They actually took an approach to actually look at, they're looking at, making gender neutral language across all the bylaws and looking at some broad changes. They were happy to let select board take this one forward because we are trying to remedy something in the fall versus waiting until the spring. So the timing was such that we took this one at the advice of town council, as I recall, Beth, because decennial review was taking a broader approach and they were looking at all of the chapters and all the things. All we're trying to do tonight is get agreement to put it on the warrant to let the town meeting decide its fate, truly.
And, I think the last thing that you said is, for the town meeting to decide is FinCom is town meeting's committee. So is it, is town meeting going to decide this proposal, or should town meeting have a broader role in deciding the?
They decide all bylaw changes, right? So this is where this would go. We're just trying to get it on the warrant. This isn't our decision to make, it's town meeting's decision to make. It's ours to put forward for debate in the fall as opposed to some later time. That's the vote.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I'm comfortable with either one of these options if there's consensus there that we can recommend to town meeting. I mean, I think it's our responsibility. There's been a conflict in the bylaw that's been identified. I think supporting our practice of having finance committee be on other committees and subcommittees, I think that's been successful for us. Certainly, as in any public forum, there's going to be things people like and things people don't like, but I don't think that we need to blow up the whole system that's been working well for us for one reason. And I'm comfortable with, I thought actually option one seemed to be the cleanest and the clearest and most narrowly tailored to solve the problem. But if somebody wants this one from another community and that also solves the problem, I'm comfortable with it. But this is a bylaw correction, not a revisitation on the whole way that we of our governance model. So there's only so much time I think that we can spend on it as well. So
Yep.
Can I ask a question? So we say that such service is permitted by provision of the bylaws, the town charter, or a vote of the town meeting. So there was a 1999 vote about 1995 vote about EFPBC, that it was a member appointed by or of among finance committee.
And select board and some others. Same language across multiple representatives, yes.
So the current list of our committees says, for EFPBC says a member appointed by finance committee. So my question is, two directions here. Does this need to be a future vote of town meeting, or would that allow previous votes of town meeting to have a FinCom member? And do we actually have sufficient documentation, record keeping of previous votes of town meeting that we're confident that we know what's what among the committees?
We do. In fact, this one was quite clearly of or by. We have other votes that are appointed by. We do have that, and that will be available at fall town meeting if we're able to debate it. The town clerk has offered to do that research, and we will have those votes. And if someone wants to make a motion for option 1 or 2, we'd entertain it.
is there one that you're partial to? Is this
Option 2.
Option 2?
Yep.
Oh, okay. Well, I move that we move forward with option 2 then for the Finance Committee bylaw change for fall town meeting in 2024.
Maybe just clarify the select board sponsors.
Yep.
Sponsored by the Select Board.
Is there a second? Okay. Hearing none. It's too bad John's not back from vacation. Okay. So let's go to co-sponsorship.
I'll put option 2 on anyway. So if
you or I will.
You what?
Yeah, you or I will.
I'm on it.
Okay.
Is that okay?
We'll talk about it.
Yep.
Something.
What are we talking about?
Closed at 7.
This
Select
sounds
board
like it should
members.
be-
Select board members can put an article on the warrant. I'm going to put it on.
Yeah. Okay.
So now let's go to co-sponsoring.
Could I just ask for a copy of the town meeting vote from 1995 that I don't have, because on our website it says one by the Finance Committee, and then it references the town meeting vote from April 24th, 1995, and December 9th, 1996. So
I can get it for you.
just want to be clear that we're in conflict there.
And while we're in conflict, I mean, you know, things have been going, you know, pretty well since 1995 for the town, right? I mean, it's...
Do you have the hard copy? Oh, yeah, that'd be great. Thank you. I have the electronic copy. She's going to get the vote that Mary Ellen, July 25th.
All right, where are we at now?
Now,
Point of information, Madam Chair.
I don't know if I want to hear it, Mr. Nixon.
So we did, the town meeting established it in 1995, but I think 2 or 3 times since, as the characteristics of the committee has changed, town meeting has taken subsequent votes, and I think that language may have, those prepositions may have changed over the years. So I think that 95 vote and other subsequent votes would be helpful to look at.
We'll get them all?
Maybe 3 total.
Okay, we'll get them all. All right. Okay, so standard article, okay, Mystic School heat. Beth gave an update that we're going to have some potentially updated costs for that, so that article is going to stay. The Town Hall Library and roof, Town Hall clock tower, library windows, with a note that the motion includes borrowing and the use of $2 million in free cash, health insurance stabilization fund. I talked to the Finance Committee on that one last week, letting them know it was coming. We will have the specific number that we want to put in there, but FinCom is aware that we're going to try that again at the fall. 160 Forest Street, we talked about earlier, and then the standard committee action. So those are our articles, with the exception of Finance Committee, which will be mine. And then co-sponsoring Specialized Energy Code. We'll take that one up first. We've been asked by Climate Action to co-sponsor this. I have some concerns around implementation and timing, and the fact that there was still some public comment, there's still some public hearings. I know we've all spent a lot of time talking with Climate Action and attending meetings, so we're being asked to co-sponsor it. I'll let the committee debate.
You know, I think the climate action plan is something that we've, this board has voted on, approved, and has been following. The Climate Action Advisory Committee is advisory to us. It's, this is one of the things that many communities are adopting, and seems like if it's a recommendation to us that's consistent with the climate action plan and some of the policy work that we've been doing, it makes sense that we move forward with sponsorship of the article. I did have a chance to meet today with Ken, our sustainability director, and Tom Kennedy from the building department, and Beth, and so we. So a lot of the questions I had were answered, and certainly there are some more. But I think on balance, it's something that makes sense for the direction of the community, and certainly for our understanding of climate change and what we can do to promote more electrification. And so I would recommend that we support it.
I agree with everything Mike said, and I'll add, I also spoke to Ken today. Seems like Ken's doing the rounds. And I also heard a question about implementation and just the status of the state code that we would be plugging into our own. And I understand that, you know, any amendments that are happening to it on the state level are just kind of for clarification and consistency issues, but the material aspects of what the code is going to require is exactly the same as what's been implemented in, I think, upwards of 48 to 50 communities statewide now, and it's been nothing but a huge success. So I'd like to see that here in Winchester too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm in agreement with what you both said.
Okay.
And there are, I think, and Ken can speak a little bit more to this, but you know, there's potential financial benefits to the town coming from the state for getting ahead of the curve and being a leader on this. And so I think that's an added benefit to us. One of the things that we talked about today is just implementation for the building department, that they are, very much kind of at their limit of their workload. And, so this wouldn't necessarily make it more difficult for them, but it's, as these policy changes and more requirements and more complex buildings come online, we're going to have to start adding more hours to some of those inspectors at the building department, which is something that we should be ready to do and something that we should have a conversation, whether or not the specialized energy code is passed by town meeting. We're going to have to take care of that business soon. The building department is essentially funded by the building permit fees. You can correct me if I'm wrong, Beth, on this, but it's we take in a little bit more fees than that we need to use, and the state requires us to only charge what we need to run the department for a fee. And so I think we can spend a little bit more without, adding pressure to our budget in future years, because the demand is there. The inspectors are spending more time on more projects because they're more complex, which is what we've seen with our projects in town, whether it be a school project or a town infrastructure project, that things are more complicated. So,
okay,
that's all I'll say.
I think it'd be worth, kind of outside of the conversation on the energy code piece, just discussing what the timing of that additional hours we might want to put towards our inspectional services at the building department, whether that's a fall request or we wrap it into the FY26 kind of budget discussion. So I think that's something we need to maybe kind of,
we'll
have to get that going as part of a fall town meeting warrant.
Do we think that there's a, is the need immediate? That we do have an article, that's usually FinCom's article, right? Or it's ours, or to amend and adjust current year budgets and close out prior year expenses. Do we think that the need is so immediate that there's a need to amend that in November? I mean, obviously, that's a motion we could move toward for October 10th, but do you have the sense?
Yes. That's what I'm hearing. And, this specialized energy code wouldn't be, in effect till July, 2025. Is that right? Or am I mixing things
July
up?
1st, 2025.
Yeah, July 1st, 2025. So, between, now and then, we need support in the department and to, build some more capacity within there. So it's not like a direct cause and effect that we need these hours. If we pass this, we need them today, and then that additional.
Okay.
I mean, we're talking about minor impact for the department for this code, because there's only a certain amount of applications that come in that would be impacted by this. But
So then let's try to understand and quantify what that is. At that point, it's going to be 7 months of budget, right? Potentially November for December through, and what do we need? And whether that's professional services. Goes in the personnel line?
It would be personnel, yeah.
Personnel,
Right now,
okay.
all of the inspectors are 20 hours per week, so they're all benefit eligible. If we were to take the building and the electrical inspector up, I don't know if it'd be full-time, but more than 20 hours, that would have, that's for the FY25, it's typically a FinCom town manager co-sponsored article to make any current year budget adjustments. So I just want to make sure we're all kind of on the same page that that's the direction we want to go, so I can move that forward with Finance Committee, because they'll have to vote their motions before that October 11th deadline.
Okay. So do you need a specific motion for that too? Do you think, Beth? Or just some
I'm
direction?
happy to just kind of get a sense of the board if we all agree that's the direction we want to move forward in. Obviously, it'll the way that those motions are structured is they're voted kind of individually, so it'll be
right.
That conversation
That line
will
item
happen at the floor town meeting in terms of that specific budget adjustment.
Okay. Sounds like you've heard the need, and
yeah. I think I also caught Tom on a bad day, but I mean, it was kind of an honest depiction of their workload there.
Sure,
and,
they do a lot for sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So then back to the code. Then I think if there's a motion to co-sponsor, someone needs to make it.
So moved.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm going to vote no. Next up, Jim Floor. So supplemental free cash vote. We just approved ARPA funding to transfer that earlier this evening on school building projects. We have also committed overlay funds, which were, we could have recommended to go anywhere. We also went to Springtown meeting and asked for $300,000 in free cash. I think on this one, with some additional free cash ask, I think the EFPBC can explain that one. I don't know that we need to co-sponsor. I think we've shown our commitment to this project to the tune of $2.5 million that we delivered at Springtown meeting. But I can let others decide what they wish to do. I think it stands a good chance of passing. I think we've shown our commitment with ARPA money that we control, overlay money that we made available, and carrying the water for free cash in the spring to get us to the 2.5 that sadly isn't enough. We need more, but see what the board thinks. I think EFPBC has the details. They can explain, why the design missed some key elements. They can explain the cost overruns. I think there's no risk of EFPBC having this. It's squarely their project that we've not just created the seed money for, we've created 80% of the funding for already. So I don't think not sponsoring it shows a lack of commitment. I think it shows the people closest to the project can explain what's going on with the project and what the needs are. But that's just me.
Yeah, I would expect the FPBC to be the kind of lead sponsor here, but I do think there's a benefit to co-sponsorship, and it's been, I think, received well by town meeting when we see multiple sponsors of, of articles. This has been a project that we kind of carried forward and pushed over the goal line with a lot of creative funding, and so certainly the technical aspect, they own that. The financial aspect, for better or worse, we've taken the lead on it. So that, would be my recommendation to co-sponsor. I think it's just shows town meeting the kind of collaboration that does exist between us.
Yep. Obviously, if there wasn't collaboration, there wouldn't already be the $2.5 million sitting there for it.
Right.
We wouldn't have put it ahead of every other possible capital request that we put this ARPA money at. So I don't think not having our name on it shows like we're backing away. We gave
I wouldn't say that.
Enormous money.
No, I wouldn't say that it sends a negative impression by us not being there. I just think it shows a kind of a positive impression that we are there. But
that's fair.
Whatever the pleasure of the board, it doesn't matter to me.
I'm ambivalent. I will probably end up supporting this as a town meeting member. I just don't want to have to present on this one. So
I think EFPBC would be presenting. Right? So yeah, I don't think that we would have anything to do with it besides kind of supporting it on paper.
Yeah, I think I don't see why we wouldn't support it. We clearly have. We've clearly put the ARPA funds toward it, and in the spring, the overlay. So, I agree with co-supporting the article, or co-sponsoring the article alongside EFPBC, and ceding our time to that board.
Okay. Someone can make a motion. I can't. Go ahead.
Okay. I move that we co-sponsor the Winchester High School gym floor supplemental free cash vote for article. We don't know what it is yet, but for the gym floor.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mark me as abstain, Patty, on that one.
You're abstaining?
Yep. All right. The last item is, I believe, consent agenda.
I think you have to.
We didn't vote the other
You have to
articles.
vote all the other.
Did we not?
We did
Okay,
not.
we did not. All right, let's go to the top.
Right? Just,
Yeah.
Okay.
Can we vote all the rest?
And give us an out if there's a missing comma. So I think it's like in substantially the
I got that.
Got it. Thank you.
A missing comma can be a big problem.
Oh, good point.
Misplaced commas have cost
Okay.
people a lot of money.
Millions.
I move that we approve the fall town meeting warrant articles in substantial form as presented.
Second.
Okay.
1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Yes.
Yeah.
1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's right.
Seconded, as said.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Now, I think we can do consent agenda.
Okay, I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented pursuant to item G on our agenda.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All right, all those in favor of that?
Aye.
All right, good night.
Just trying to figure